Welcome to the regularly scheduled public meeting of September 6, 2022 of the Township of Washington Township Council. Adequate notice of the meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by the Township Clerk to at least 2 newspapers in January, and this meeting has been posted on the Township Bulletin Board, the Electronic Message Board, WCTV, and on the Township website. Please notify the Municipal Clerk for any disability requirements necessary for the attendance at mayor and council meetings. The fire exits are located through the double doors to your right and through the door on your left. Please silence all cell phones. That's okay. Salute to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So roll call.
Councilman Ignacio.
Here.
Councilwoman Feeney.
Here.
Councilman Sears.
Here.
Councilwoman Velez.
Here.
Council President Morgan.
Here. Let the record reflect also in attendance Mayor Calamari, Township Administrator DiCarlo, Attorney Lamontina, and Township Clerk Witkowski. Yeah. Okay. Northwest Bergen Regional Health Commission is the township's local public health services health officer. Please visit their website at www.nwbrhc.org for all COVID-19 related updates, as well as information or contacts for other health-related issues. You can also sign up for their newsletter, which will keep you updated on various health-related topics. Washington Pascack intersection. Work hours are 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. Motorists are advised to avoid the intersection if possible and expect some delays during these times. For the latest updates on road closures, please monitor the police department's social media as well as the township's social media postings, links at the top of the page. The DEP has issued a statewide drought watch urging residents and businesses to conserve water as persistent dry and hot conditions continue to stress water supplies throughout the state. These measures can help avoid more serious and restrictive drought conditions. 9/11 ceremony. Please note this year's ceremony will take place on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. in front of the Township of Washington 9/11 Memorial Monument, which is located on Pascack Road in front of Town Hall. All are invited and encouraged to attend. The Washington Township Annual Car and Bike Show will be held on Sunday, September 11th from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Westwood High School. Early registration forms are available on www.wtfd.us. The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, CDC, will be going door to door regarding a national health survey. Approximately 40% of the township households receive a mailing sometime in June advising them of the survey and upcoming visit. Surveyors will be going door to door 7 days a week at random to complete the surveys until September 29th. The individuals going door to door will have an ID on them. As always, please call if you feel that someone or something looks suspicious. The next meeting of the Township Council will be held on Tuesday, September 19th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. We have no approval of minutes. At this time, Daisy, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. As many of you know, I have been working on an age-friendly initiative to bring to Township. And this evening, I invited 2 board members, Kathy Kuzma, who is the Executive Director of North Jersey Villages, and Eddie Weiner, who is a board member of North Jersey Villages, as well as the Director of Care Support, to come and share with us this initiative that I'm trying to bring to Township to make us more of an age-friendly community. So Kathy, if you would come up, please.
I'm Kathy Kuzma. I live at 530 Ridgewood Road, the Township of Washington. And I'm here, as Daisy mentioned, as the Director of North Jersey Villages. North Jersey Villages serves all Bergen County residents aged 60 and over who choose to age at home. NJV's mission is to engage those Bergen County seniors in developing local networks to make their choice to age at home safer and healthier, as well as more feasible, affordable, and enjoyable. NJV is a member of the National Village to Village Network. This network promotes a virtual village model and provides a Village 101 toolkit as a blueprint for developing a good foundation for a sustainable village membership group that serves those aging at home. This village is not a place, it's a concept, an old-fashioned, it takes a village concept of neighbors helping neighbors to age at home. You can call this virtual village a membership organization or a network or a community. You'll hear that smattering through my presentation, but it's called the Village Movement. You can call this virtual village, so this village model and the toolkit, which has been used by over 300 villages throughout the United States since 2001, seeks to build communities to fill gaps in resources in the local communities. Gaps that would serve the aging at home to make it more feasible for those to age at home. What it never does is to duplicate existing services. And actually, it increases awareness of and access to those existing resources. So in 2014, I was introduced to this village model at a conference of senior service providers. I was very excited about the concept of enjoyable and purposeful engagement of seniors in identifying and making more available the activities and services they want or need for aging at home in their community. To make it safer, healthier, more feasible, more affordable, and more enjoyable. I thought this village membership organization concept might be ideal for towns in Bergen County, so I brought it home. I'm especially excited about introducing this village concept in my own hometown. I'm also proud that my hometown has joined the Age Friendly North Jersey initiative. I know that Age Friendly can improve the quality of life for all of the residents. I was personally involved with 4 of the original Age Friendly towns in Bergen County: Westwood, Ridgewood, Garfield, and Englewood. I worked on committees for improving communication, especially for those who are not computer savvy, and for improving transportation and walkability options for seniors, as well as for parents and toddlers with toddlers and strollers. I worked on programs for increasing awareness about scams and fraud and the importance of advanced healthcare directives for citizens of all ages. You never know when you might have an accident, and then you can't speak for yourself and let people know how you would like to be cared for. I've witnessed the involvement of residents of all ages working together to improve the quality of life for all ages in those towns, and now maintaining initiatives that they started together. Excuse me, I didn't drink a bottle of water, which was a mistake. I'm grateful that Councilwoman Velez approached North Jersey Villages because she recognized that the Age-Friendly Community Initiative and the Village Movement I am introducing to you today both improve the quality of life, not only for seniors, but also based on the expressed needs and wants of seniors. The village concept provides opportunities for residents of all ages and experience to be part of the village movement. We do have some wonderful activities and services here to support seniors aging at home: police and fire, ambulance corps, a bus on some days, the Golden Seniors, Bethany Community Center, the Knights of Columbus, educational and cultural events at the library, and that is all great. But there's probably a gap or two for seniors aging at home in place here in the township, just as there are in most Bergen County towns and towns throughout the country. The model encourages village organizers to identify those gaps in activities and services. The results of the survey that's going to be done by the Age Friendly Township regarding housing and neighborhoods, transportation, environment, health, engagement, and other opportunities in township. That survey will highlight some of the gaps in meeting the needs of seniors. And that will be helpful in giving a focus to exploring the development of a village model, a neighbor-to-neighbor network to meet those needs in the township. But filling that gap is not only about supplementing what is provided by the county, the municipality, the senior center, and organizations and agencies. Filling the gap means addressing the seemingly trivial things that we, or your parents or grandparents, or senior neighbors, aging in their homes or apartments, were doing for many years. But these things have now become new needs. Those seemingly trivial things that could make it less feasible for us to continue aging at home. I know, there's so many things that I can't do that I did 10 years ago. While climbing a ladder becomes a challenge, who can a senior call to change a smoke alarm or a light bulb so that there's sufficient lighting to navigate their home safely? I heard that some Golden seniors have called Jim Joyce, but not all seniors in town are fortunate enough to know it. Who can a senior aging at home call if they are sick and they need someone to walk the dog, to put the garbage cans to the curb, to shovel snow, or to rake the leaves, that if it rains, you don't slip and fall? When a friend or a relative, one who usually drives to events at night or to a doctor's appointment or to pick up meds or groceries, is not available, when that person is not available and the bus is not an option at that time, who does a senior call? When finding a service provider is a challenge because your grandchild is not there to help you through navigating Google, who does a senior call? These may seem trivial, but when you live alone, or if a support group doesn't live nearby, who do township seniors call? The village concept provides an organized support and outreach so that if no one in your support group is available today, another neighbor in the village you joined is available to fill the gap through an organized online system or one-on-one phone call. But I also want to point out that filling the gap is not only about what we can no longer do. Filling the gap is also about how we, as seniors, can fill the gap for others. The village concept builds up the self-esteem of older adults by tapping into their skills and experience so that together they can build a network to make it more feasible to age at home, safer and healthier, more affordable and more enjoyable. Another member of the North Jersey Villages Board, Eddie, is Director of Care Support at AgeWell's Family Solutions, a geriatric care management company. Based on his 16 years of experience that included working with home care agencies, rehabilitation centers, and hospice organizations, Eddie sees the value of many non-medical services that existing villages are providing for those aging at home and their caregivers. And he's going to share with you a little of what the villages are offering.
Thank you, Kathy. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council members, thank you for having us today. Villages are meeting many needs not provided by other local agencies or organizations and not covered by insurance. They are also offering opportunities to engage even the needier and the socially isolated seniors. The village concept also offers intergenerational opportunities and volunteer hours for students. Villages are helping seniors with technology in cooperation with high schools and senior centers. Over the past 2 years, we've seen how valuable it is for our older population to use computers or smartphones to communicate with family members and medical professionals, especially when they're homebound. The village concept encourages visits to seniors. Homebound seniors are also being included in the village call center response team. They are also making friendly calls to seniors who are isolated. They are tutoring via Zoom. They are engaging high school students to assist with outdoor work. Like Kathy said, garbage cans to the curb, raking, shoveling, and pet walking. Villages like North Jersey Village, Hub Village record or have hybrid programs available to seniors who cannot join them in person. The focus of these educational programs is to make aging at home safer and healthier. Having medical information easily accessible in case of an emergency, understanding scams and frauds, doing home safety assessments, and webinars presented by elder law attorneys on the importance of advanced care documents. Retired nurses, home health aides, and others have organized non-medical assistance for those transitioning from rehabs and hospitalization. Many villages are introducing MedPals, a volunteer service to go to doctor appointments, to take notes and be the second set of ears and eyes when the family is not nearby. Respite care for caregivers is becoming a vital part of the village. Friendly visits and allowing for a caregiver to go out to dinner once in a while, to go grocery shopping, or to get their hair done. Caregivers need a break. Most villages have some interest groups online or in person for active seniors, but also need to keep the homebound engaged. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the challenge is this. Mayor Calamari and council members, we hope you see the value in the village concept, and we are requesting your support for NJV to explore this concept in Township and throughout Bergen County. In 2018, Larry Lafriere did an interview on WCTV Exit 168 with me and Tess Tomasi from the Bergen County Department of Senior Services. The focus was about the value of the village concept, with the boomer generation living longer, the number of moderate income seniors not qualifying for benefits growing, and research showing that seniors staying productively engaged is beneficial to their overall health. Municipalities across the country are finding themselves hard-pressed to keep up with this age wave, while they're also losing their autonomy in this push for sharing services, right? Tess Tomasi speaks of the reality of understaffed government agencies strapped for cash to meet growing demands, and the real value of the village movement bringing a wave of volunteerism and peer-to-peer networking. You can view this interview in the Exit 168 archives or find it on the NJV website, northjerseyvillages.org, in the About NJV section. We believe that based on recent studies, that this village model and the opportunity it provides for seniors to improve their quality of life would be more readily embraced by some older adults if seeds were planted, nourished, and cultivated by community leaders like you, and I'm really parched. In 2021 survey of 120 active villages, responses suggested growing awareness and support from government officials and other community organizations and churches, which resulted from the village involvement in fulfilling needs during the pandemic. That data also indicated that the growth of the number of villages in a region directly paralleled the strength of governmental awareness and support in that area. In addition, a 2021 report in the Journal of the American Society on Aging noted that the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio are actively seeking grassroots village leadership to promote the concept. Georgia has received a federal grant to promote village statewide. The District of Columbia is trying to spread the village movement throughout the city. There is even a county in Maryland that actually has a village liaison on their council. What can we do here in Bergen County? I gave testimony at the 2019 and 2022 public hearings on the needs of older adults in Bergen County. I have shared those testimonies with Daisy, and I've asked her to share them with you. I hope that you will review those documents to give you more background information, so that when you are meeting with other county or municipal officials, you feel compelled to take on the initiative of promoting and voicing your support for the village concept in Township and throughout the county. I thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share this model with you. And I really look forward to exploring the village concept with you in the future. To all Township residents, including the mayor and council, we hope you see the value in the village concept and you are willing to share your thoughts about the North Jersey villages, exploring with you the feasibility of developing this village concept in Township. With Age-Friendly Township, we have set up several opportunities for you to join the discussion, and Daisy will share those with you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you so much for doing this. So as Kathy said, one of the things I want to stress about the Age-Friendly Initiative is its purpose is to kind of, that's why it's called age-friendly, right? It's not just about our seniors, it's about the children, the adult children of these seniors. So as Eddie had said earlier, he says the concept offers integrational opportunities and volunteer hours for students. So it's a way for us to connect our youth and our seniors in the community. So just a couple of ways that you can join the discussion, right? We really want to see what Township needs, right? As Kathy said, we're here to fill in the gaps, not to duplicate or take over, but to fill in the gaps where the needs are, where we feel the needs are. So let's see. If you could please make sure to view this or share it with your parents, or if you have a senior neighbor, please ask them to view the recording of tonight's presentation. Also on September 28th, I invite everyone, not just seniors, but if you are an adult child and your parent wants to stay home, age at home, as the North Jersey Villages encourages, please visit the event on September 28th at the library. We will be discussing the basic village concept and the services of how we can make this more affordable and accessible to our seniors. It is taking place, and it will be on the website. I'll make sure to get that up soon. It is taking place at the library on September 28th from 5 to 7. We will be offering a light supper for those that attend. It is free, but we do ask that you register. That will also be available on our Township website shortly. Additionally, if you have any questions, we will be posting a link on the Township website where you can directly send your question to Kathy at North Jersey Villages. And lastly, we are in the works of putting together an interview session with Larry from WCTV Exit 168. That will take place sometime in late October, early November, where you can submit questions and Kathy will be answering all the questions. So I really encourage everybody to take a look at this. I feel it's really important to bring our seniors into our community, right? As they continue to age, as Kathy had said, there's going to be simple tasks that they cannot do or becomes more challenging. And why not connect our youth or our young adults to our seniors and help our residents really age at home, where, I mean, that's the best place to age. I say that as somebody who has parents aging at home. So again, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Eddie. Very informative. And if anybody has any questions, you're always welcome to email me as well. Thank you.
There are Flyers, if anyone wants to pick up flyers for the 28th, the event on the 28th.
Sure. For those in the audience, there, as Kathy said, there is a flyer available. It's got the information from our September 28th event at the library from 5 to 7. Again, it's a free event. We have a light supper available. And then there are also some brochures if you want to learn a little bit more about the North Jersey Village concept. Really, I've gained so much information, so I really appreciate all our meetings, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, so report of mayor.
Thank you, Desiree. Good evening, everyone. In light of the presentation and the fact that our last council meeting was only 3 weeks ago, I don't have my usual department by department report. So I just want to remind everyone in the public, schools are open. Please be on the lookout for our children. Drive safely, carefully, and also to formally introduce our new town administrator, Mark DiCarlo, to the public.
Thank you, Mayor, for the kind introduction. I truly appreciate the opportunity you've given me to serve the township in this capacity. I look forward to working with you, the council, my colleagues, and the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, do you have any other update, or that was, okay, all right, no problem. Okay, report of council, we will start with Councilman Casio.
I'll make it real brief. No report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Feeney.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation. I think all of the points in your information are valid, giving your caregivers breaks, and then also, changing a light bulb can be a problem for seniors at home who are living by themselves. At the last council meeting and the council meeting before, after listening to the residents on Finnerty Place, I am going to be making a recommendation that the right side of the street be moved as no parking the entire length of the street. I think that's going to be the safest option. And then also you have a very small, on the other side, there's a small yellow curb. I think we're going to also add that to the ordinance, that there's no parking there. I don't think it's in the ordinance as of right now. That's on the conference agenda. I want to say welcome to Mr. DiCarlo. Looking forward to working together. And yes, school's open. Hope all the kids have a great first day in Township tomorrow and a safe and healthy school year. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Councilman Sears.
Thank you, Council President. A couple of months ago, I talked about Safe Streets Awards. I have gotten official notification from the state that Washington Township has received the Gold Winners Award for 2022. Also, the following schools have also received the State Safe Streets Award. We have Washington Elementary and Jesse F. George School. Those two worked with the Green Team, worked with the police, DPW, some seniors. It was a full town event. So this year for 2022, Washington Township, Washington Elementary, and Jesse F. George School are the state gold winners for Safe Street Awards. Very good work, everybody. It was a complete team work. Also, I'd like to talk about what we met. I had a discussion and I met with the Ridgewood superintendent. They are getting their new defusing machine for their styrofoam, and he has agreed that we can be part of Ridgewood's recycling of the styrofoam. I talked to the mayor about it. We're going to be sitting down with them to come up with the particulars. As soon as their machine is in place, Washington Township, we can start recollecting our styrofoam, our ESP styrofoam that is the most dangerous and hazardous for the community. Also, while I was talking to them, Ridgewood would like to have Washington Township join their compost recycling project. So we're going to be working out the particulars with that. where we will share with some of their compost, which I think was a great idea for the community. We can share their compost. We can go there and pick up whatever we need. Also, Lincoln Park is now open. The Scouts have completed both projects, the bird sanctuary and the nature trail. Both Scouts did an outstanding job working up at Lincoln Park. So if you want to take a nice nature walk, they got the trails marked out. They got the type of trees that are in the park. They even put benches along the trail if you get tired to sit down. Outstanding work by two of the Scouts. I do want to talk about something that each community should be talking about. It's the fentanyl crisis that's going on. Fentanyl is killing our young adults, 78,000 last year. Now they just came out with a new type that looks like candy. We have to bring this to the attention of our governor, our federal leaders, that this has to stop. Too many kids are dying of this drug. I've been talking to a lot of parents that are sending their daughters and sons off to college and stressing with them, do not take a pill from a friend. Do not borrow a pill from a friend. You need to go to a particular doctor or pharmacist and get the medication you need. Last year, 109,000 Americans died. So far, we're up to 78,000. It's ridiculous that this open border is causing this disaster in this country. If I can ask the WCTV person to throw up some films. This is Pascack Road. The amount of garbage that's flowing out of the shopping center that's blowing down the street. Matter of fact, the mayor and I actually walked this the other day. I would like to sit down with the safe grocer because most of that garbage and debris is plastic bags, receipts, and some garbage that was left in the street. This is Pascack Road. This has to stop, people. It's a disgrace. You're coming through the town and you see all this. And a gentleman we met actually cleaned that property a day before, and this is what we get the next day. So it's dangerous to the community, and it really makes the town look horrible. So we have to come up with a solution to this problem. It's blowing out of the shopping center. You can actually watch it come down the street. Could I have the next two films? Here is Finity. As you can see, a truck is parked in the no parking. Actually, there's two trucks parked in the no parking spot on Finity right off the corner. Now, talking to the police department, we have to add no standing to the signs. So there'll be no standing and no parking. When this gentleman left, the garbage that was in the street when he pulled out was ridiculous. So again, this has to be enforced and it has to stop. Could we have the next two slides, please? What you are looking at is a call that I received early in the morning. Two cranes in the middle of the street taking down a tree. No police protection, no calls at all. Joggers, people walking their dogs as this tree is being swung over power wires. We're going to have to add to the ordinance, and I already talked to the code official upstairs, that when he issues a permit, if you are going to use a crane in the street, you're going to have a policeman there. The traffic, as you can see, was backed up on both corners up until the patrol officer. I actually called the patrol officer to get there. We had to stop this because they didn't really care. They just pulled up and they were chopping that tree down. And prior to that, the day before, I got a call. People had no permit. All right. So again, the ordinance for tree maintenance, we have to pass this and we have to enforce it. So part of the new issuing of a permit is if you are using a crane, you have to notify the police department. They have to be there. This was a disaster looking to happen. Thank you. WCTV guy. And I have to point out again, our children are going to school. Some don't wear helmets, some are riding their bicycles. They're speeding on Beach Street, Colonial, and around the schools. They have to stop. And I can actually say in 25 years, I've actually saw a police car in front of my house with a radar unit on. So I like to see it more. The children are there, they're running around, and you know, kids, they don't look left, they don't look right. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Blythe?
Thank you. All right. Over the summer, we've been working hard to get our age-friendly initiative off the ground. And I really encourage our residents, not just our seniors, but also those with elderly parents that want to stay in their homes, age at home, to attend our September 28th event at the library. It is taking place from 5 to 7 p.m. It is a free event, but we do require registration just so we have an idea of how many folks to expect. We'll be offering a light supper. So please, I encourage us to make your way there, learn a little bit more, ask questions. Maybe you'll have some of your questions already answered. This summer, we had 2 summer movies down at Memorial Field. They were very successful. It was really nice to see members of the community, the children, being able to enjoy some warm nights under the sun, under the stars, watching movies. So thank you for those who made it out. As always, please send any recommendations of movies you would like to see as we prepare for next summer. Our summer concert was excellent. I can say that I was there and it was very well attended. We had such a great time. It was an 80s band, the Ronald Reagans. I want to thank our volunteers, in particularly Heather Henry, who was able to locate the band. And I've only received some positive feedback. They were really great. If you want to check out some of the clips and pictures from that night, please follow our Facebook page, our official Facebook page for Parks, Recreation, and Public Affairs. I also want to thank Gina DiVirgilio, who is a tremendous help to make all these events possible. And then as well, Joe Caparelli. He is an electrician that got us the power. Without him volunteering his time, it wouldn't be possible. It's really important to get out there, volunteer, because these are the people that make these events possible, our volunteers. So thank you very much to you 3 in particular, as well as our DPW and our police for keeping us safe, and for all the residents, spending that night with us. It was really a fun evening. 9/11, our 9/11 ceremony will be taking place this Sunday at 9:30 in the morning. I encourage and welcome all our residents to come and pay our respects for those that we lost on 9/11. Again, it's down on Pascack by the 9/11 monument at 9:30 a.m. Town Day. This year, Town Day is Saturday, October 1st from 11 to 3 p.m. It will be a day of fun, right? We have music, live performers, food. Sponsorship is still available. If you are a business or resident looking to promote your business, please visit our website. The form is available and it's not too late. We are also always looking for volunteers. So if your son or daughter, or even yourself, you need some or want some community service hours, please email us and we are happy to take any volunteers available. And last but not least, I want to welcome the town administrator. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have you aboard, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I will keep it short as well. Councilman Sears, I agree with you with the garbage from the parking lot. So just a quick story. I continue to get calls and I am constantly in touch with one of the residents who routinely cleans the, I don't know, embankment area, I guess, of the Valley Bank. I personally was shopping just the other day, and I know exactly what it is. It's the garbage bags and it's the wipes that you wipe down the carriages with. Yes, that you wipe down the carts with. Mine blew out of my cart, swirled around, and blew across the parking lot. And so, of course, immediately I thought, someone's watching, someone's going to see that I just didn't run after that. That's the first thought that came to my mind. Did I want to run after it? Absolutely not. But I did, because all I could think about was, this is all the garbage that is accumulating all over across the street. So I don't know what is going to be done, how we can fix that. I don't, I have real expectations. I don't think everybody's going to run after their bag that's flying up in the air, see where it lands, but it all winds up in one space. So I don't know what the conversation needs to be with the owner of the food, of the strip mall, sorry. If there needs to be, I really don't know what the answer is, but there needs to be an answer. I do want to acknowledge and commend the bank, because they definitely had, and I thank you, Mayor, because I'm pretty sure you probably had a hand to do with getting the conversation going. But this resident did tell me that prior to him calling and making us aware of what was happening, the landscapers used to just blow it into the riverlet. Now, he said the landscapers are bagging the garbage. They are actually putting the garbage in a bag. So it's not them. We can't place blame on, it's the landscapers blowing everything in. They are actively trying to help, but it's still there. It's still becoming a full-time job. So I agree. It is a street that goes right into the main part of our town, and it's horrendous to look at. It's every day. You clean it today, tomorrow it's there. And I know that Finnerty, sees the same thing. So for that, I think that that needs to be a priority to figure out what we can do. I do see that the parking every day is still there. They are still parked landscapers standing, sitting, on the grass or whatever there. So I don't know what we're going to do with that either, except that there is a code enforcer that we need to maybe, I don't know if that's code enforcer or police. You can let me know about that. But we do need to start enforcing. Otherwise, why do we have, why do we have it? Why do we have an ordinance if we're not enforcing it? So that's my thought there. I do want to say that I think the fire department looks beautiful. It was much bigger as it was being built. I think in my mind, I was very worried about how big it appeared. But now that everything is all coming together, I see that it's not as on top of the houses as I thought it was going to be. It really is a nice looking building. I am curious to know when the other old building is going to come down, when we're going to start using the new fire department and the new EMS building. So that's one of my questions. And I did want to say that I did have the pleasure of meeting Mr. DiCarlo last week. And what a pleasure. So I welcome you. We had a really good conversation. I think it was a 3-hour conversation, close to it. Felt like, you're very easy to talk to. I encourage you, if you have a question, call, reach out. Super easygoing and very easy to reach, and willing to work with us. So welcome to the team, and I look forward to working with you. That is all for the updates.
Glad to hear that the Valley Bank was amenable to the suggestions from last council meeting. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go to general public comment. To participate in the general public comment portion of the meeting, please click on the link below to join the webinar. If by phone, *9. To raise hand, *6 to unmute. Each person wishing to address the council shall give his or her name and home address for the record, and we ask that only one person speak at a time with a 5-minute time limit. All members of the public and council are expected to conduct themselves in a proper manner. Any derogatory, abusive, or threatening statements will not be permitted, and the council president will immediately rule such conduct out of order and terminate any further comments. Okay, motion to open?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, perfect. Okay, is there anyone that would like to come up?
Good evening, Julianne Lipnick, 184 Finnerty. Mayor and Councilman Sears, thank you for taking the time out recently to meet with us. I know there's been a lot of chatter on Facebook about the love that the street has seen. In reference to the garbage that flies over, you'd be surprised how much that fencing does in fact help. So if it could be a lower one up towards the top of the street, I don't know, but the fencing helps tremendously. What we are finding on top of the garbage, I don't know if anybody has walked past my house, we now have no dog poop allowed signs on our lawn. It's amazing. I cannot believe how brazen some people are. I ran after a woman who allowed her dog to dirty on my lawn. And I ran after her and, ma'am, you left something behind. And she was like, oh, did I? Oh, yeah, I was going to my car. I was going to go home and get a bag. No, here you go, his bag. My neighbor actually saw somebody pick up their dog and fling the bag onto their lawn. I mean, people are just getting brazen more. Yeah, that's what I said, Councilman Sears, believe me. But I do thank you. It's coming along. And do we have a timeline for that lovely orange block? I would love to have a send-off party and send it away.
I expect it to be very soon.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, are we waiting for the plaque?
The plaque, yes, please. That would be very, very nice. I do. But I think what we spoke about was a very positive outlook, and I'm, very pleased, and I look forward to seeing the planting plan for us to review. In addition to that, Mayor, going back a while, when we were entertaining the Charlie Brown site, you had brought to the attention the reserve, that $1 million school reserve, and you were going to look into the interest factor on that $1 million. I was just wondering if you had ever seen any figures as to what interest we may have gotten over the years?
I did bring it up with our CFO. That money sits in with, it's not reserved for that, so it sits in with our other monies. He said it probably has not made much interest through the years because probably from administration to administration, no one knew if it was going to be spent, and they wanted to have it ready and liquid and not tied up with anything. So he
Okay.
said, if it made any,
It
it's
wasn't in an
minimal.
investment count of
Yeah.
any.
Yeah,
Boy.
unfortunately, who
Too
knew
bad.
20 years ago that we'd be here 20 years still discussing this? But,
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Mhm, yeah.
Well, maybe they had given it to the residents. We could have invested it for the town. and we would
Absolutely.
Just, but again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone with their hand up?
No.
No. Is there anyone else who would like to come up? Come on up.
You mind if I comment to Ms. Lipnick's point regarding the dog fecal incidences? Because that's what happens. It's prevalent around town, and it's really a non-hygienic way to take care of our town, to say the least. And I am very disappointed when I see people not picking up their responsibility. We'll call it responsibility when you own a pet. You're the pet owner. You have to, care for that pet and do everything for it. And not only is it bad when they, don't pick it up at all, but when they put it in the bag and then leave the bag there, that's even more of a annoyance for me. So if you do own a pet in town, please pick up after it. It's the right thing to do. Even if no one's looking, it's still the right thing to do. So thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Thank you.
Michael Oman, 2 Clark Avenue. I first wanted to thank Mayor Calamari. Last week or last meeting, I had raised some concerns about Clark Avenue and the repaving, and the engineer was out the next day or a day or two later, and Suez or Viola, whatever they're called these days, also visited. So I appreciate that, Mayor Calamari. I guess my question on that is, who does the proposal or the request for quote for the repaving? Because I can only imagine that the street may have been repaved without someone looking at it. It was on the schedule, it was marked out. I wasn't aware of, not that I would be, of any further detailed review of the street. And I guess if we're paying an engineering firm to prepare it, shouldn't they inspect the streets? I mean, do they just go to a map, measure the linear feet and say, pave it? Because they have to remediate a leak and they have to remediate the former work that was done or prior work that was done. They have to grade it deeper. So, you know, if I didn't complain, what would have happened? And shouldn't we be more proactive if we're paying that type of money for this? So that's one question. The second question is with regard to the emergency service building and the plans that are on the website, are they the actual plans that we're following? And the reason I ask is there is on the eastern property line, there is supposed to be a keystone retaining wall. And when I go to the property, there's no retaining wall. So I'm just wondering, did we pay for something and we didn't get it? Or did the specs change prior? Is there a change order on that? Because it would seem that we would want the retaining wall and the resident would want it if it was specified, because they're going to be on the downhill of the property. The other question I have is with regard to the project, where do we stand? Has the council received a report with regard to the costs of the project and where we stand with regard to the cost?
I can answer that if you'd like us to answer some of your questions. I have not. I don't know that that was part of my request in my report. I asked the same question. So where we stand with that. So.
Okay. And that's, one last thing. The property on the eastern side of the new building, it appears to me, I'm not 100%, that they put a fence up, a new fence. And I guess my question is, we have, I think not we, but the council has a $40,000 placeholder for new fencing around Town Hall. Why wouldn't we do something like that for the residents that are going to be dealing with the new building? And lastly, who's responsible for the property at the moment in terms of keeping up with the lawn, keeping up with the weeds, keeping up with the, what's the stuff, the trees behind? Because it already appears, I mean, I visited about a week ago, that there are large weed type trees that are already growing against the building, covering the compressors. So if we're not, taking care of it, who is? It'd probably be a good idea. So
That would be the DPW, wouldn't it? wouldn't we have, don't they take care of all of our buildings?
Long-term, it will be theirs. Short-term, until the contractor is done,
It's
should
the
be
contractor.
his responsibility.
Okay, so we have to then, are we doing walkthroughs and walkarounds? I know Mr. Togo was asked to be on site or to at least stop by, make sure everything was running. That would be one of the things I would think should be eyeballed, to say to then the contractors, this needs to be fixed so that we're not destroying it before it even gets a chance to get started. Thank you for bringing that up. We'll look into that for sure.
Okay. And then, do you know if we're actually going to put sod down? Because when I visited, the gentleman was watering weeds. I mean, there's a couple of square meters, yards of dirt. I would think we would put sod down. Because it did look a little unsightly, and maybe it's changed, but
So I don't know that answer, but I will definitely ask that we get the answer to a couple of these questions, and that we put it we let him know that the expectations are that the grounds are kept up as they complete their project. So I will email you if that's okay.
Sure.
I don't want to wait till the next meeting. I'll email you once I find out if they are putting sod down, what the plan is, and if where we are with the budget and everything else.
thank you very much.
Some of those I can answer now if you'd
perfect.
like.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That'd be
not
great.
all, but some.
That'd be wonderful.
Regarding your question about the street, Mike, the DPW works with the engineer, since the DPW drives our streets on a regular basis, to suggest to the engineers which streets need to be done. Your question is a fair one, and I will find out about it, whether the engineer goes and actually visits these streets ahead of time. I don't know the answer offhand, but Mark and I will find out. To my knowledge, the plans for the emergency services building that are on the website should still be current, except for perhaps any change orders that were put through. Perhaps they did not get updated as the change orders went through. Regarding the retaining wall, Mark and I have a meeting there tomorrow with the contractor and the engineer, so I'll certainly bring that up and see where that stands. The cost, it is still within the budget. I'm happy to say it has not gone over budget. Regarding the new fence, I'll also have to ask about that tomorrow. And the landscaping, like I said, it's the contractor's job to keep the site neat and clean until they turn it over to us. And regarding sod, I don't think there's a plan for sod. I think every place is going to either have green bushes, but I don't think there is a plan for sod in any of the areas. But again, Mark and I can ask that tomorrow when we're on site.
And just to be clear, it is a new fence, because when I took a picture, it was an older wood fence, and now it's a new vinyl fence. So just why is one disadvantaged or advantaged over the other?
I mean, we did try to work with each homeowner around the site to see what their preference was. So it could be that some wanted a fence, some wanted greenery, but we have gone out of our way to work with each homeowner who borders the site to see what they wanted.
Madam President?
Yes.
Can I address Mr. Ullman? Mr. Ullman, I did Oprah all the change orders, I think, 2 weeks ago, Sue? You sent them to me? So if you want those, I can forward those to you that I have, and I'll put another request in for up to current. So I'll send those to you.
Are there any other questions or anybody would like to come up? Okay. Oh, okay. It's just about to close. There's a hand in the back.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tommy Snee. I apologize if my comments were a little choppy. I just kind of put a pen to paper about 2 minutes ago. Tonight, several of you mentioned the kids going back to school. So tomorrow, for the first time since 2019, learners in our
I'm so sorry to interrupt. What is your address?
772 Cotch Peak Avenue. Sorry,
Thank you.
I'm out of practice.
Okay, continue.
So tomorrow, for the first time since 2019, our learners will return to school, mask optional, full-time, 5 days a week, per week, every week. What a wonderful milestone. Mr. Sears, I want to thank you tonight for your comments regarding the devastation that fentanyl has unleashed across our country and our community. I ask if possible that this council collaborate with the Board of Ed to develop a comprehensive community-based solution to continue to inform, educate, and protect our learners and their families. Thank you for your continued support of our learners and their families.
Thank you.
Bob Stickle, 191 Walnut Street. Before I speak on what I was going to speak about tonight, I'd just like to thank Councilman Sears for his support with Michael Kazigian and Nick Cabello down at Johnson Park. And he was down there above and beyond. Also the support of the mayor for Troop 321 in town. So they're always looking for new scouts, and both the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts now both have we have a female and male pack in town, and a male and female troop in town. So hopefully we'll have our first female Eagle Scout in the next few years. I'd like to thank Daisy for all her work in the town, Councilwoman, Velez. I know doing a town fair and all you do is a lot of work. And I think Mrs. Kuzma's comments tonight were very interesting. I am the chairman of the Health Advisory Board in town. I think maybe that's something we could get the Board of Health involved in that. I'd love to go to that meeting, but I will be away on vacation, so I'll speak to the new Director of Health, Judy Beckmeyer, see if she's available. What I came to speak tonight, I know our DPW definitely needs a new home. It's important because we're keeping, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars worth of equipment out in the weather, which is just going to age it. We're going to get less time out of it. But the last few weeks, I've been traveling up through New Hampshire, seeing customers. I've seen about 29 towns. I've been upstate New York over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I noticed a lot of DPWs up there, highway departments, build steel buildings to house their DPWs. They can be built much quicker, much more affordable. They can be insulated today. I do have a lot of customers I go to in the construction business that have these. They have racks in there. They put plows up on racks. There's a lot of storage. So I have some pictures. I'll give you things I saw. I don't know the overall cost of these. I tried to investigate some bids that were out there for towns, but it's a little difficult. I also want to commend our DPW. On the 20th of this month, I've lived in town 18 years. My company is never closed due to weather, so I go out in all weather, and our streets are plowed, and they're always picking up our debris and everything you ask them to do. I still remember when my son's Eagle Scout project was dedicated. I went over there with the blower to blow it off, and I got over there, and there was 4 DPW guys cutting the grass, trimming everything, and blowing it. And I just said, "Wow, you didn't even ask." So, just like to thank your support. I'll give you some of these pictures and maybe something to look into. I'm not trying to change what the DPW wants. I think they should get what they need. But a lot of these steel buildings you can build offices into and everything, and you'd think you're in Class A office space. So they can be insulated today. They can put solar on them. I know that came up. Councilman Sears brought that up. So it's just a suggestion.
Thank you. It's an excellent suggestion, actually. Thank you. Anyone's hand raised? Is there anyone else who'd like to come up? Okay, motion to close, public.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So can we pass that down to-
Okay, ordinances. Okay, adoption second reading, ordinance number 22-16, an ordinance amending the table of organization of the Police Department of the Township of Washington. Resolution number 22-301, authorizing second reading and opening of public hearing for ordinance 22-16. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Sue, roll call?
Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilwoman Feeney,
Yes.
Councilman Sears,
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez,
Yes.
Council President Morgan.
Yes. Discussion? Okay, so is there anyone who would like to come up?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Chief Richard Skinner. Thank you for the opportunity to have us here tonight. I want to thank the council for inviting us, the mayor. I'd like to welcome Mr. DiCarlo. Welcome aboard, Mark. Good to have you. We have a proposed ordinance here that we'd like to speak about. And I think probably easiest way to do this, there's a lot of paperwork here, but I've highlighted a lot of it in PowerPoint. So I believe Ricky's going to be able to pull the PowerPoint up. And there we go. First of all, I want to thank Ricky for this because we came in today and we set up.
WCTV.
And WCTV. Yeah, I'd like to thank WCTV for this. I know that Rick himself is actually working this, which is great. We were hooked in here today and then we discovered that we weren't going to be operating the PowerPoint ourselves. We just have to say, next slide, please. Next slide. Look at that. Okay, so this is our current ordinance. If you look at it, it's quite lengthy. And I know on that screen you can't see it, but if you're looking at the sections 3, 4, 5, and 6, they talk about the number of officers we're allowed to have. They're actually a little bit confusing and they're kind of long-winded. And I'll explain that. Next slide. Okay, so right now, lieutenants, what it says there, if you'd like to take the time to read it, I'll read it for those that maybe are on TV or the audience. Not more lieutenants provided, however, that at such time, there are only 2 lieutenants as members of the police department due to retirement or termination, voluntary or involuntary. If one of the 3 lieutenants were members of the police department, the number of lieutenants in the rank structure of the police department shall automatically be reduced to not more than 2 lieutenants. So if you're reading it the same way I'm reading it, at one time we had 3 lieutenants and we're now reducing to 2, right? I just think it's a very long way to say it at this point, since we only have 2 lieutenants. I think in the proposed ordinance, we could just say 2 lieutenants. Next slide. The sergeant part gets a little more confusing because with the revisions that we've had in the table of organization, we've eliminated ranks and they're still kind of referred to. So I'm going to read that also. Not more than 6 sergeants, of which no more than 2 sergeants shall have the rank above sergeant. Provided, however, that at such time there are only 4 sergeants as members of the police department due to retirement or termination, voluntary or involuntary, 2 to 6 sergeants and members of the police department, the number of sergeants in the rank structure of the police department will automatically be reduced to 4. So the way I'm reading that is that, 2 lieutenants, 4 sergeants. The issue we have here is in the next slide. So I think, Steve, you were the only one that was here in 2011 when we passed the latest revision of the ordinance. And I'll go through a little bit more in the presentation. I'll go through a brief history of how this ordinance evolved. But if we read this, and that this is probably the longest and most complex. But what I want to highlight is if you just take an opportunity to read that, I think I'll spare the public and people on TV of me reading this entire portion. But, if we're going to have 2 lieutenants and 4 sergeants, next slide, please. We're going to have a combined total of 7 lieutenants and sergeants. And Steve, if you remember, when we had this discussion back in 2011, this was the fact that we sometimes have a lieutenant or a sergeant assigned to the detective bureau. And that's one of the big reasons tonight that we're looking for these ranks, because we have 4 squads. I need to have sergeants running those 4 squads, right? We have 2 lieutenants. Those 2 lieutenants run basically 2 of those 4 squads. So it's kind of like a pyramid, right? 1 lieutenant supervises the 2 sergeants. Each sergeant supervises his own. So we now, in this ordinance, currently, we have the ability to either make a lieutenant or make a sergeant if we feel that that person in the detective bureau is worthy of that promotion. And that is something we really need, because if we train somebody in the detective bureau, we've had some turnover there recently. We spend a lot of money to train them. If we pull them out, or we have to pull them out as soon as they're promoted, that becomes an issue. So that's really what we're looking to do with our ordinance. So if we go to the next slide. This is something that no matter what we agree on tonight, has to be changed. This is line 6 in the current ordinance, and it says not more than 12 patrolmen and corporals combined. We need to change that to police officer. We did suggest this in 2011. When the 2011 ordinance was written, I think just somehow it got skipped. One part of the existing ordinance says the word officer instead of police officer, and another part says patrolman. We have female officers now, and I think we should call them police officer. In fact, since 1974, the state of New Jersey in Title 40 is using the term police officer, and I've highlighted it there just so you can see it. So I think that's another kind of just wording change that we need to fix. If we go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the current ordinance that we're proposing. You'll see that it's a lot shorter. It's a lot more clear. There's no ambiguity in there. And then next slide, I'll just flip you back to compare to the old ordinance. Again, you'll see how much we've reduced. We've cut ranks out of there. Next slide, if I can. Okay, so in this ordinance, we're eliminating the rank of detective sergeant. In other words, detective sergeant at one time in the collective bargaining agreement was a rank with a pay raise. We'd like to take that out of there. Essentially, what we do now is we take an existing sergeant, and if that sergeant is in the detective bureau, they just get a stipend for being in the detective bureau. They don't actually get an additional rank and additional pay. So we're cutting that out. Sergeant first class, if you refer to the current ordinance, we are allowed to have up to 2, I believe, sergeant first class. They would get a stipend of $750. We don't feel the need for that. That's where that confusing language was, how many sergeants you have above the rank of sergeant. We'd rather just have sergeants and not the rest. Again, sergeant and corporal would remain. We've also taken detective, or in the ordinance it actually says detective officer. Well, detective is no longer a rank in our department. You would be a police officer assigned to the detective bureau, and although you would be able to claim the title of detective, you're not a detective, and detectives also were making more money. So when we eliminate some of these ambiguous ranks, ambiguous ranks, I apologize, it saves some of the money that hopefully we can do, because we're looking to increase sergeants here, and we'll get into the reasons why. And we want to increase the actual base number in the police department. So next slide. Okay, probably the big question that everybody's asking. Yes, we are adding a rank. We're asking to add a rank. We'd like to add the rank of deputy chief, but we're really not adding that. We're adding it in lieu of. So if you see where it's highlighted in green, in the second column, it would be deputy chief or captain. In other words, we would do exactly what Westwood PD did. Westwood added a deputy chief, but they could have a deputy chief or a captain. We wouldn't have both. And there's going to be certain advantages to that that we'll discuss as we go through. But the ordinance that we're proposing is just simpler. It's cleaner. And instead of picking between the sergeant and the lieutenant, we're asking for the 2 sergeants. Next slide, please. Okay, just to give you a little history of the TO. So if you go back, and again, it's hard to trace history. This was probably the earliest version I was able to find was 1974. But anyway, give you a little historical value. In 1990, we were allowed to have 3 lieutenants and 6 sergeants. And that's how the police department functioned. There was no cap on number of police officers, so the total really could have been anything. When John Calamari and Roy Scherer, lieutenant on the end, were hired, we were 25 officers when we got hired here in 93 with 3 lieutenants and 6 sergeants. So we're asking for less than used to be. We just know that there was a big reduction in 2011. We're trying to instill 2 of those ranks back. So next slide. 1996, the ordinance was amended and the rank of corporal was added. That's when patrolman first class, patrolman second class, all those ranks were taken out. And that was, how it went. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so again, here's our current ordinance. Like I said, this ordinance was last updated in 2011, and I do believe it just needs to be cleaned up, and we're looking for some extra manpower, and we'll explain that when we go to the next slide. Okay, so currently we have 20 police officers fully sworn. Now that doesn't count the SLEO 2 that we have. It doesn't count the SLEO 3s that are in the school. The SLEO 3s in the school are being fully paid for by the school. Out of the 20 that are here, 6 of us are eligible for retirement, and as of February 1st, 8 will be eligible for retirement. That becomes important because for the next couple of years, you're going to have a lot of retirements here in the police department, and we're going to need to have younger police officers coming up, and we're going to have to build a level of training. In fact, we're due to hire one police officer. We in the process right now because we have a pending retirement February 1st. One officer has already applied for retirement out of those 8 that'll be eligible. He's going as early as he's eligible. Next slide. We also just started the accreditation process, as you know. We started accreditation September 1st. The important thing to that is we pulled one of our sergeants off patrol and we've put him full-time on accreditation. That should take 12 to 18 months. Honestly, we're really hoping to get it done in 1 year. That's what we contracted Rogers for, to have it done in a year. They're the consulting group we're working with. But it really is an absolute full-time job for that sergeant. In the next 4 months, we're going to issue 62 new policies to our police officers. While that sergeant is not on his shift, we're paying sergeant's pay anyway, because according to the collective bargaining agreement with the PBA, when there's not a uniformed sergeant working, the officer that's in charge of that tour gets sergeant's pay. So, we're already kind of paying it. In fact, I signed off on the first tour commander pay for the officer that's now running that squad. So that's another reason why we need the manpower. Accreditation is a pretty big lift for us. Mr. DiCarlo is a retired chief from an accredited agency, and he can tell you that. Next slide, please. Okay, so we also have an increased workload, and I actually want to thank Mike Holman for this, because I think last week Mike asked, since we've changed this ordinance, what has changed in the police department? Well, the workload has changed. Those are our computer-aided dispatch, what we call our CADs. So the International Association of Chiefs of Police recommends that you look at a workload matrix, and that's going to cover your number of calls and your time spent on calls. So from 2012, you can see there's been a steady increase in calls for service. Now, that CAD, there's a CAD generated, a computer-aided dispatch, basically for everything a police officer does. So that's everything from we check the shopping center doors at night to, we went on a rabid raccoon call to carjacking to homicide. That's everything. And you can see that we've had a steady increase in the number of calls. A lot of those calls also are self-generated. Our police officers have been more active. That's one of the things that we tried to do when we took over as the police administration was have our officers do more motor vehicle stops, do more self-initiated community policing. Next slide. So of course now responding to more calls correlates to more hours spent of our officers' time on calls. So this correlates to how many calls we answered and how many staffing hours were spent, how many hours were spent on those calls. And you can see, 21 from 20 to 21 went up, 22 were on target to probably pretty much match those 21 numbers, maybe even go a little above. So our call volume has gone up, our time spent on calls have gone up, training requirements have gone up, but I'm gonna have Lieutenant Pecora cover that. I'll pretty much go to the next slide, and Captain Calamari is going to go over some FBI statistics and the fact that our residential population is increasing. John?
Thank you, John Calamari, Captain, as you know. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, you have in front of you a very basic statistical analysis of police employment in the Pascack Valley. You'll see based on population, that's another factor that the FBI has traditionally used, is a population matrix for the number of full-time officers. And this is the Pascack Valley. Those are the 8 towns. We comprise the 9th. You'll see population, number of officers, and officers per 1,000 population. And you'll see this is 2019. Those are the most recent numbers that are available from the FBI. It's published in the uniform crime reports. We don't have to get into that, but that's where this information comes from. Bottom line on this analysis is it shows we've pretty much kept pace with the agencies around us in terms of officers per 1,000 population. And so again, we keep it pretty consistent. Next slide, please. Lieutenant Pecora helped me put together most of these figures on this chart here. And what it indicates is in 2019, we kept pace, with about 20 officers. However, the agencies around us, pretty much all of them, have increased their table of organization. They've increased the number of officers that they have, which is what we're before you, asking for. The average, as you see, is 21.5. We're at 20 right now. That TO change that we're requesting would bring us up to 22. It would bring us more consistent with the towns in the valley. And again, this is the entire valley's experiencing the increased workload that Washington Township is. Next slide, please. Again, just a brief overview, FBI statistics. The Mid-Atlantic states for municipalities under 10,000 population, they average 4.3 police officers for every 1,000 population. Now, you saw in the Pascack Valley, we don't match those numbers, and I'm grateful for it. However, we are statistically significantly lower than the rest of the Mid-Atlantic states with regard to municipalities under 10,000. We're listed at 9,100 and change, I believe. But as you'll see at the bottom, we're anticipating, not insignificant increase in our population, just based on a few new developments. The Franklin Court apartment complex, the Viviano project, which we're all familiar with up on Van Amberg Avenue, and the Chelsea Senior Living Facility, which will replace, where the racket club was. Next slide, please. All right, along with that increased workload that the chief spoke about, that's calls for service. I always appreciate the opportunity to get up in front of you and kind of explain what we do, because police work, it kind of goes on behind closed doors sometimes, and you don't always get a feel for exactly what the police department does. So with regard to administration, and this is something that the sergeants and the supervisory officers are all involved in. Police reform, criminal justice reform, we've all heard about it, but what does it actually mean? How does it increase the workload for the police officers? Basically, what it comes down to is there's an increase in the level of review, supervision, and oversight that all police officers are subject to. There'll be no more slides on this one, so you don't have to focus on the TV. This is more just talking points. So there's increased review, supervision, and oversight. Where this comes is primarily from the Attorney General's office and the prosecutor's office, who give us directives and guidelines with how we have to follow up on various calls and various incidents. One of the big changes in the last few years is meaningful reviews. Prior to that, use of force incidents, show of force incidents, and pursuits required one review. It was done by a command staff officer, and he looked at everything that was available. He looked at reports, he looked at evidence, he looked at whatever video was available. He conducted a review, he signed off on it, he made recommendations, he confirmed that all guidelines were followed. If they weren't, appropriate action was taken. That meaningful review has increased significantly. It has become a two-level review, and it requires a sergeant to conduct that review as well as a command staff officer. So we doubled the work for this one aspect. Not only did we double the work, 2 reports, 2 reviews have to be done, but we have significantly increased what that means through the use of body-worn cameras. For a meaningful review to take place, the officer must view every body-worn camera, the entire footage that every officer wore for the incident. So that means a 20-minute incident with 3 officers present is a minimum of 20 minutes per officer, 1 hour worth of review just to watch all the footage. You cannot fast forward through that. You cannot skip through that. You can't say, oh, I don't have to pay attention to this. Those are logged. If I watch a 20-minute video in 5 minutes, I have not conducted an appropriate, meaningful review. And that's a 20-minute call. We've had a few incidents lately that have been significantly longer. I personally have done a few reviews that have taken me over 8 hours just watching body camera footage, because if I have more than 4 officers there on a 2-hour call, there you go. The sergeant has to do the exact same thing. So that's just a small example of the increased workload for our supervisors. In addition, body-worn cameras require redaction for discovery and OPA requests. If an officer is a motor vehicle stop and he's wearing his body-worn camera, he gets in his car where he's got his mobile data terminal. That camera picks up the screen. That screen can't be shown to the public. That screen can't be released. It has to be redacted. We didn't have that issue before because we didn't have body-worn cameras. We had car cameras, which focused on what took place outside the car, but now we see what happens inside the car. If there's any juvenile involvement, that has to be redacted, their faces, their identities, et cetera. There's a significant amount of redaction that's going on with regard to OPA requests and discovery. Again, an increased workload. In going along with criminal justice reform, there have been juvenile justice reform. Prior, we used to just, if a juvenile was involved in a juvenile delinquency incident, we would fill out a complaint and send it down to Hackensack, and they would adjudicate it, and they would handle the whole case. Now we are required to conduct what's called station house adjustments. And that requires the officers to kind of take a special interest in the case, speak to the parents, spend a not insignificant amount of time working with the family and figuring out what the best course of action is for what took place. And it can vary, and I don't want to bore you with details, but the bottom line is something that used to take 45 minutes to an hour is now taking an officer, 6 to 8 to 10 hours, depending on exactly the nature of the incident. Increased workload. Firearms permitting. Firearms permitting, handgun permits, those used to take about 2.5 hours to process, 2.5 hours per permit of an officer's time. Lieutenant Pecora did it for many, many years. It still takes that much time, but now we have carry permits. Carry permits have increased significantly, as we're all aware. We're getting inundated by them, and they take a significantly more amount of time, at least 5 hours to process one carry permit. And we're up to several already, and I only see that increasing as well.
Said 7 down so far, and there's 3 more to go. And that's on the lower end of things. They're picking up now.
Yeah. And finally, reporting. Along with this increased oversight by the Attorney General's office, as well as the prosecutor's office, reporting has increased significantly. We used to do annual reports for things like internal affairs, early warning system, juvenile reports, use and show of force reports, as well as pursuits. All of those have increased to quarterly reporting. So a report that used to get generated once a year is now generated 4 times a year. It just takes time. And again, in Washington Township, those have to be done whether you're in the department the size of Washington Township or in a department the size of a Hackensack or a Teaneck. It still takes officers' time. And in Washington Township, we share the load, okay? The supervisors, the sergeants, they're all involved in this because, God forbid, someone from command staff's not available. These reports still have to get signed. These reports still have to get sent in. So we involve our sergeants. So their workload has increased significantly. And again, it's an opportunity to share with you what we do and the way our workload has increased. CADs tell one side of the story, but supervision is a whole other component, and supervision has increased exponentially. The last part I would just like to talk about is having been in the Detective Bureau myself. I did a large portion of my career, almost 14 years in the Detective Bureau. Having a rank in the Detective Bureau matters when you're dealing with other agencies. A huge part of dealing with with the Detective Bureau is dealing and coordinating with other agencies. When you walk into things like task force, crime scenes, etc., that matters. When you have rank, when you're a sergeant or a lieutenant in the Detective Bureau, it commands respect, but it gives you credibility at the scene. It gives you credibility with these task forces. And there's certainly no downside to that. I can tell you that many, many times it's opened doors. By removing the rank, we got more in line with the modern times. It's titled by assignment, not titled by rank. But asking to increase the sergeants, I can tell you that it might not be a very tangible factor, but it is certainly a significant intangible factor. Did you want to touch on loan officers?
Yeah, so
Because of the Detective Bureau.
not to jump back and forth, but the other thing that adding 2 police officers would do, to deal with the increased workload is one of the things that one of our goals we wanted to do since we've started as the command staff of this police department. I've been chief. We want to put an officer out on loan to an outside agency, generally a federal agency. Now, that might sound like something you've never heard of. Every department in the Pascack Valley has an officer on loan. There's several advantages to having an officer on loan. One, that officer gets training. We don't deal with, say, search warrants on a daily basis. So if you're working for the DEA or you're working for the Department of Homeland Security, you're going to get specialized training in investigation, search warrants, detective work. In addition, let's say we loan somebody out to the DEA. They're going to bring back forfeiture money, generally well in excess of the cost of their salary. Just to give you an example, I spoke to the Glen Rock chief this morning. He has an officer on loan with the DEA, has been there 4 years. He's brought back $1 million roughly to the Glen Rock Police Department in forfeiture. So think about it, and we'll just try to liven things up here a little bit. What do you think the DEA seizes a lot of?
Cash.
See, Stacy, you're thinking, because anytime you ask that question, people say the DEA seizes drugs. They do,
Cash.
but they seize a lot of cash, and if our task force officer is working for the DEA, we get a portion of that cash. That goes into our forfeiture funds, and that forfeiture funds can be used for certain things. I'll be honest with you, recently, they've kind of dialed it back a little. You used to be able to spend forfeiture funds on anything. You could spend it on Junior Police Academy. Now it's a little more restrictive what we can spend it on, but, you know, an officer on loan would bring that money back. In addition to the money that the officer in Glen Rock has brought in, they're expecting to close a case right now that'll probably bring another $1 million just this year from that DEA. Westwood has officers on loan, Hillsdale has officers on loan, Oradell has officers on loan. Ridgewood has officers on loan. Ridgewood, I think, has 4 officers loaned now. Westwood has had as many as 3 at one point. I think they have 2 now. We don't have that ability right now because we're running things so tight. You know, as I said, at one point we had 25 police officers in 1993 when we got hired. You know, now at 20, we don't have the luxury of doing any of these things. So I think that we sell the department short. I think we sell the residents short if we don't try to get a piece of the pie on the forfeiture funds. We have a forfeiture account right now. There's 5 cents in it. It's the balance in that forfeiture account has been 5 cents since I've taken over. We do have one pending drug case right now that was, you know, completely handled by the Washington Township Police Department. If that case gets adjudicated, we may get, what's the number on that, AJ?
$11,000.
About $11,000. However, it's a marijuana distribution case, which may just go, you know, down the road because of the nature of their they're dismissing a lot of marijuana charges. So we don't know if we're getting that money or not. But, you know, having 2 more officers is going to help staff us, and we are definitely going to put one of those officers out on loan. So I think are we up to AJ?
If we return to the PowerPoint.
Yeah, the increase in training requirements has gone up exponentially over the last couple of years. And this is all stuff that's coming down from the AG's office. Not only is the firearms a mandatory, now we also carry tasers. That's once a year certifications. You have your ASP, which is our tactical baton, your OC spray. You have active shooter training. You have de-escalation training that goes along with active shooter training. You have domestic violence training. You have CPR. You have breathalyzer. Use of force, which we have to do every single year, twice a year, plus pursuit. We watch videos and we have to take tests. It's equivalent to college courses that we have to take and that officers have to do during the course of the day. We also get training called clear training that every year changes slightly, and it could be anywhere between 6 and 8 hours of clear training alone. I've just named a few. That equates to about 110 hours of training mandatory every year that every officer has to do. So that has increased over the last few years, last 5 years. It's definitely increased a lot. Also, part of the training is our field training. When we do hire somebody new, whether it be a SLEO 2, a SLEO 3, or a full-time regular police officer, the training that they get after the police academy is hundreds of hours. An average police officer will go through our FTO program, and it's about 45 working days after they graduate the police academy. That's 540 hours that they have to do. That's another officer training that officer. So now you're, in essence, using 2 officers to train that one officer. The level 2 training would be somebody like a SLEO 2. That's about 360 hours, about 30 days. And then level 3, which would be about a SLEO 3. And that's the least amount because they're retired police officers. So they're fully trained already. And that's about 40 hours that we have to train them before they go into a school. This all has to be factored in when we're looking at what we're asking for. We need more officers to start replacing some of the officers that are going to be leaving in the next couple of years. And like we touched upon, there's a lot. And if we wait too long, we're going to wind up with a huge deficit. And it will be a huge strain on the members of the police department currently and future members with the training requirements that are needed. It's something that you really need to consider. Thank you.
Okay,
Next
so-
slide. Okay, I'd like to just touch base on a couple of different things, some which I might be repeating. Again, we are a 20-man department. Currently, 6 officers have 25-plus years. 3 of us are in our 30th year. Come February, there's going to be 8 officers that will be eligible to retire. In February 23, 1 officer will be retiring.
Roy, I hate to interrupt you. Can you move the mic closer to yourself?
I'm sorry. Okay, SLEO 2s, they're like a stepping stone to become full-time officers. We currently have 1 within the department. Most SLEO 2s are trained down in Ocean County. I reached out to several of those towns down there, Wildwood, Seaside, Cape May, Ocean City, Point Pleasant. They normally get 75 applicants for those positions during the summer. They only got about a third this past season. So it just shows that just hiring and getting candidates to do this job is getting tougher. We're planning ahead, and we put on Police app for a SLEO 2. We put that out approximately 3 months ago, and that actually ended at the end of August. We only got 7 applicants. Out of the 7, 5 are certified SLEO 2s. So out of, in comparison to over 3 years ago when we put the applicants out, applications, we received 53 applicants. So we're down approximately 76%. So it just goes to show that getting applicants to do the job is getting tougher. All right, times have changed, and the interest and the process for policing has changed dramatically, and making it much more difficult to get qualified candidates. So that's why it's important that we try to fill positions now, right? 8 of us can retire, come February. We don't want to, 8 people can walk out the door for whatever reason, and we don't want to have to hire 8 new police officers at one time. So that's why, seriously think about why we're doing this. We're doing this for the right reasons, to do the right thing for the community. So, anybody want to sum up on anything?
No, I think Lieutenant Sheriff covered it well. Keep in mind that the SLEO 2s supplement, quite often the SLEO 2s, they do traffic during the day. We've at most times had SLEO 2s. We've been having difficulty maintaining just 1 SLEO 2. And that's just the fact that, job applications are down. Normally at the end of the summer, when the summertime SLEO 2s leave their shore communities, they apply for a job as a SLEO 2. They're already getting out of the shore, and they already have jobs as regular police officers. That's how bad and how tough recruiting is. So, we're losing that supplement of the SLEO 2. The other thing I did want to talk about, I'm hoping that we articulated a clear need for more manpower in those 2 additional officers. I think we clearly articulated the very big increase in supervisory duties and supervisory time. The other rank that I did want to talk a little bit about is the rank of deputy chief. It's a unique rank, and it's not something that a lot of departments in Bergen County have. I believe there's 10 departments that have deputy chiefs. Westwood did it. It worked very well for Westwood. And essentially what happens is, we have a unique situation here where the captain is in the collective bargaining unit. So he's a PBA member. When the captain gets involved in disciplinary action, that makes it a little difficult as a PBA member, especially if there's going to be a grievance related to a policy that we've put out. So, making a deputy chief, 1, would take an additional officer out of the collective bargaining unit. I think for a small pay increase, that's something now he comes out of the collective bargaining agreement, he would negotiate a contract probably with the administrator. It could be, generally deputy chiefs make halfway between what the captain makes and what a chief would make, which by next year, we're talking about probably $4,000. For that $4,000, he's no longer eligible for overtime, so you're gonna save that rather quickly. Also, with the increased workload for everybody, I think you can imagine the increased workload for police chiefs. I was in Ireland on vacation this year approving gun permits because nobody else could approve them. That, again, has just grown exponentially. When I'm on vacation, the captain could sign off on the gun permits, the handicap permits, he can handle day to day. When I do go away, especially if I'm going to be out of the country on a vacation like that, I put out a clear chain of command that the captain is the officer in charge. But if I'm just down the shore for the day and you can't get me on the phone, it's really a big advantage just to have that deputy chief available. Now you have a chief that has the full decision-making power. He would also have access to the same groups that I belong to, right? A lot of the stats that we brought out today were from the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the State Association of Chiefs of Police. A deputy chief can join all those organizations, and he's just going to be a better educated person. So that's kind of our reasoning behind the deputy chief. We're kind of following Westwood's model and some of the other towns around the county. And again, it's a trend that seems to be increasing because the responsibility and the liability on our departments have increased. There's just a tremendous amount coming from the Attorney General every day. We spent literally hours at chiefs meetings just going over new guidelines and new requirements from the state. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. So I think we've kind of summed most of it up. I'm not sure really I was going to kind of try to sum up if there's something that we left out, but I think we covered what we wanted to say. I would like to see if, council has questions or there's any further discussion you'd like to have. I think that's actually our last slide, which you probably don't need to put up, but it did say any questions or
It was up.
discussion.
Madam
It was up
President,
before.
So we're there.
Madam President, I just have one question about the some of the guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to the reporting, I do deal with a lot of reporting in my role. Is there requirements of who does the reporting? That an officer has to do it or a captain, and in addition, to the reviews of the incidents, is there clear guidelines set forth by the Attorney General and the agencies that you're sending the report to that says an officer who has been trained submits this report? And so are those things that are in the guidelines that you receive?
Depends on the report. Like I said, with regard to a meaningful review of an incident, such as a use of force, a pursuit, or a show of force, then it absolutely prescribes a frontline supervisor as well as a command staff.
Okay.
With regard to general reporting, which is what the annual reports that have increased to the quarterly reports, no, it doesn't specify. Internal affairs has to be a specially trained internal affairs officer. Juvenile officer should be the named juvenile officer, but it doesn't specify rank or anything like that.
But it has to be an officer.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. Yep.
And then for the various changes and guidelines, if there's a new report, does the Attorney General or the reporting agency send out training guidelines then you have to do that training in order to achieve what is required in the report?
Again, same response. It depends on the nature of the report. Sometimes they give us leeway and latitude. Other times it's very detailed.
Okay.
So yeah, I would have to say it depends. 50-50 maybe.
But it has to be an officer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing just answer that to further. Basically, the internal affairs officer, so the captain oversees internal affairs, but we have a sergeant and a detective all in internal affairs. All those reports go quarterly through there. But it's not just a reporting factor. It's just the amount of information that we need to put out. For example, there's been so many changes. I would say probably 3 or 4 times a month, we get another Attorney General guideline, another recommendation. Just to give you an example, in October of last year, the state passed an act called the Narcan Leave Behind Act. So if we go to somebody's house, because I know we spoke about fentanyl tonight, our guidelines are anytime somebody overdoses and is administered Narcan, they have to go to the hospital where we want them to go. However, we can't force them to go. If they don't go to the hospital, we have to leave Narcan behind. This is just something that everybody needs to know. And again, this just goes into the training requirements and the supervisor requirements. The supervisors have to make sure that's happening. So basically, 2 to 3 times a month, we get a new, 8 to 10 to 40-page document that has to be reviewed and followed by every officer that's here. You know, there was horror stories in other departments where, along with that Narcan take back was, you know, we should all know in law enforcement by now that hypodermic needles are no longer illegal. It used to be if you had a hypodermic needle, it was considered drug paraphernalia. There was departments that were behind in training and were arresting people for having hypodermic needles, and they were false arrests. So we take a lot of pride in the fact that we've increased the training in our department. That's why we're now ready to start this accreditation process, which is going to be another huge task. And it's also, again, our officers are going to be reading 62 policies in the next 4 months and have to sign off on them. So it's just another increased workload. We've also increased workload for and training for our supervisors. You know, historically in this department, you would get promoted to sergeant, you would not receive any additional training. Right now, before our sergeants get promoted to sergeant, as corporals, they're sent to a 4 to 5 day New Jersey specific class that deals with supervision, and it deals with attorney general guidelines, and it deals with case law specific to New Jersey. After they complete that, they go to a 5-day FBI LEADA course, which is a general leadership course. You know, so all of our sergeants are getting 10 days of training where they used to get none. Our lieutenants, in fact, Lieutenant Shera is the first one to complete the FBI LEADA trilogy. You know, as a sergeant, he completed the supervisor class. As a lieutenant, he completed the command staff level training, and he just completed the executive level training. So again, just increased training, increase the professionalism of the police department. That was our goal when we came in. I mean, frankly, without getting too into it, when we took over this police department, some of it was being run like it was still 1975. We brought this department rather rapidly, into the new century. We're meeting all our requirements, and we just need a little help along the way to keep up the level that we have. With that increased training, I do have to thank council. If you've been following, budget every year, we've increased the training budget every year, and you've allowed us to do that to provide that training. So thanks for that. But I mean, any other questions?
Council President?
Yeah.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
You talked about having more sergeants for command of your squads. Why would you pull a sergeant out of command and give him a 12-month to 18-month assignment? Why wouldn't you use a corporal or a senior officer? I'm sorry. And if you do pull a sergeant, strictly do paperwork for 18 months, that would be his only job assignment within the town?
No, so, again, sometimes we don't want to mention names because, but the officer that was pulled because he had a unique skill set. Accreditation, and I'm going to ask Mr. DiCarlo to confirm this. Accreditation is probably the single biggest operation that this police department has taken on in the last 20 years. We're going from having no written policy for certain things to being fully accredited by the state of New Jersey and the New Jersey Chiefs Association. So that officer that we selected also has a very heavy hand right now in internal affairs. He's also our OEM coordinator. So during COVID, he was taken off of his night schedule for almost a year during COVID. And that made us realize the need for extra sergeants, extra supervisions. So, if you're asking me why I put a sergeant on accreditation, it's because accreditation is the single most important thing that we're looking at right now. It has to be done properly. Not only do we have to review and institute 62 new policies, we're probably going to be up to over 100 policies. Everything that's in that policy, there's 112 accreditation standards that have to be met, and you have to show proof for every single one of those standards. So that's why we're pretty much putting our brightest and best forward on that. That was the recommendation of the Rogers Group, who, as you know from budgeting, we are paying a pretty nice consulting fee. We're paying the Rogers about $40,000. We're probably going to spend another $10,000 on upgrading things here that are required to achieve the accreditation process. So that's why we have a sergeant on it. And I'd like to think we have the best guy for the job, which is important.
So you also talked about FBI statistics. Knowing what's going on now within the FBI, when were these statistics given out to the township?
Yeah. I don't think they're the same guys that raided Trump's mansion, if that's what you're getting to, sir. they're generalized statistics that deal with manpower. Those are the statistics that we use. You know, same thing, when we choose bulletproof vests, we go to the FBI's ballistic testing. You know, your feelings about the FBI, I think, are probably irrelevant here. They are kind of the, you know.
Well, I didn't
authority on this.
mention my feelings. I just asked you, are these
It's the
FBI
same FBI
statistics?
that's always been the FBI.
Another question. We're eliminating the captain's position. Well, you want to eliminate the captain's position.
Negative.
You do not want to eliminate the captain's position.
We want to have the ability to have a captain or a deputy chief, but not both at the same time.
So you're looking for also maintain a captain and a deputy chief, please. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Well, which one do you want? A deputy chief
Yeah, it is a little
or a
confusing.
captain?
It is a little bit
Which
confusing.
one do you
I-
want?
Right now, we have a captain. What I want is a deputy chief. And then.
So you're
when that
eliminating the captain's position.
No, we're not eliminating. We're-
So
we're
if we
leaving it
gave
there
you
to
a
be fair.
deputy, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to clarify for
Yeah,
myself.
please.
If you got a deputy chief, you would lose the captain.
We would lose the captain.
Okay.
And
That's
then
what
we
I
would
just
not replace the captain. No, we're not, when you say eliminate, we're not eliminating it forever. We're taking a captain and making him the deputy chief. We're not replacing him, but we're not eliminating him. It's not going to come out of the TO. For example.
Oh, okay, so you
When
could
we
hire
paid
back into
corporate-
So
it.
you can hire back into it,
When
which
we-
means that everybody
No,
in the rank
we
below
can't.
will be moving up?
We can't hire back into it because you could only have one or the other. You can't have
Well,
both.
then I'm asking you, which one do you want?
I want a deputy chief.
Mhm.
Now,
So-
and let me, I think I know where you're going with this. You're afraid that somewhere down the line, I'm going to have a deputy chief and a captain. The way the ordinance is written, I can't. It says you can have one or the other. We can't have both.
Mr.
If a
Lang,
deputy chief retires
Right.
and we don't want to fill that spot, we feel that person would be more appropriately be a captain because his experience is commensurate with the rank of captain. We might take a lieutenant, make him a captain, have no deputy chief. Maybe 2 years down the road, when that captain has more experience and maybe there's a chief getting ready to retire, we're going to move him into that deputy chief position. I think you're getting caught up like we're asking for two things. We're not. We're only.
No, I'm not getting caught up. I just want a clarification, very simple, because this is kind of confusing. You know?
Okay.
So with that being said, if you take the deputy chief position, let's say, everybody else is not moving up a rank below that.
Nobody else would move up.
Simple. Another question, I'm sorry.
Please.
So you mentioned a $4,000 difference between the captain's position and the deputy chief's position?
I would say that would be an approximate. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're gonna negotiate, not you, but the town is gonna negotiate if we make a deputy chief. He's out of the collective bargaining agreement, so he's not covered by a contract. He would need to have a contract. It could be an extra $4,000, it could be an extra $1. The only real rule you have is that he's gotta be paid more than the captain, so he's gotta make $1 more than the captain.
So that means that we would have to now have a negotiation contract for the chief and the deputy chief.
That's correct.
And that would be done by who? The administration?
Yes.
She
And
would
then brought
present it.
before the council
Right.
for approval?
Mhm.
the benefits, though, is that, not that it's a benefit, I should phrase that differently. The difference between the two is that the new deputy chief is not eligible for overtime as they were under the
Right.
captain's rank, correct? Is there,
So for a small base salary increase, you're saving overtime. And again, it's adding to the responsibilities of the command staff to just share certain things.
Do you have a roundabout what the captain's overtime has been in the last couple of years?
I mean, the captain can probably answer that better, but I can tell you right now, it's not high. The captain chooses to take most of his overtime currently in time off. So he's had some significant, time off built, but he can certainly take it and pay, or the next captain can take it and pay. When I was captain, I took all of my overtime and pay. I needed the money, so, back then I might make, a significant amount, you can make, 20,000 in overtime. Yeah, and again, this is why I want to discuss this, this is what we're asking for. You guys are the council. You're the ones that have to either approve it, disapprove it. you're the ones that are going to function to help it happen. So, if there's something that you really you're stuck on, I think we could certainly discuss it,
Have Sabani Warren cameras, how much additional time has that added to training? Is it once a year? Do they have to do that more than once a year, that training?
So the initial training was one full day of training, and then there was a learning curve for the last, I would say, probably 2-3 months. Officers are pretty comfortable with them now. It's more in the redaction and discovery and exporting the videos.
Okay.
It's a process. So we actually had to order different computers to actually manage that.
Oh, okay.
Because you're dealing with a lot of video.
Yeah.
So, and the computers that we have are too slow. So it was taking even longer. So it's the process of managing the video now that is taking additional time.
Okay.
Because there is that much more video.
Then question, just to be clear, now a deputy chief, they will have the full decision-making power as a chief
Yes,
in your absence?
yes.
And as it stands, there's nobody that can do that.
Well, in my absence, I appoint the captain as the officer in charge, and he's going to make decisions. It seems it just doesn't carry the full power of the weight. But I don't want to mislead you to think that without a deputy chief we can't make decisions. Of course we can. He can make the same decision as a captain. I believe it just carries more weight as a deputy chief. And then there are certain few semantical things that only the chief can do. Certain things involved with the association, and approving certain things have to be approved in the state by a chief executive officer, which is either a chief or a deputy chief. It's not a, listen, 65 municipalities, 55 don't have one. So it's, I'm not saying it's something we need. It's something that would make the department function much more efficiently and effectively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to be honest with you. The deal breaker for this ordinance is the deputy chief. Okay, for me. And you know how I feel about the contracts for,
I do, Steve.
because it's been from the beginning, before your tenure and your tenure before and the chief before, there was no contracts with the chief. It was an at-will job. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of it. So I'm definitely not a fan of a deputy chief. We pay the chief of police a lot of money. Okay. And, I know you go on vacation, you're entitled to your vacation. That's part of it for me.
Oh, yeah, listen, when I'm on vacation, I answer email every day.
Yeah, I know, you're on the phone. I get it. And that's, now I'm getting my money's worth. I feel good about that, okay?
I spoke to council president when I was in Ireland.
I'm
She didn't
sure.
realize I was
But,
there. Which is
that's my feeling. To give another contract for a deputy chief is not for me. And I wouldn't mind giving you another lieutenant, another sergeant, another corporal. I have no problem with that. I understand that we're going to have turnover. But for me, a deputy chief is not in the cards because I don't think it's worth going outside the contract, the PBA contract for that. For me, it's a deal breaker. So the way this stands for me, and if it's a minor change and we can do it tonight, I'll vote for the table of organization change. But with a deputy chief, I'm not going to do it. And those are my reasons. I'm going to be, me, I'm a straight shooter. I'm not going to, tell you something I don't believe in. But for me, it's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, Steve, let me say this. You've been sitting on the dais the longest of anybody up there. You were here in 2011 when we changed the ordinance. So, the fact that you're open-minded and you're realizing that, we do need a little additional manpower. We do need additional sergeants. Honestly, I don't think I can ask for more than that, especially, historically.
Well, we did come down from 25. We were overloaded up top, and that's why we did the change originally, right? Because we knew that the table had to be changed, and it's very confusing as you read through it. I'm like, what did I say yes to back in 11? Sometimes I wonder what I did, but we had to change it because there was a need, and I understand there's a need for more officers. I get that.
Really, the need for more officers is big, and the sergeants. I can tell you the sergeants are the backbone of the police department. What we do as supervisors, I sit in front of a computer all day. When I have to make a decision, I have the luxury of research.
Right.
Our sergeants make split-second decisions, so they need more, they need training. They need
And again, I have no problem with that because that person's on the road. Okay, he's doing his stuff and he's in charge of his 3, right? Because you have groups of 4. So
Yes.
again,
Yep,
I
squads,
have
yep.
no problem with that. But again, the deputy chief is a problem for me.
And I can understand.
You know,
Absolutely.
and that's really how I feel about
Okay.
it. So again, if you need more people, you know, we are a little understaffed. If you look at your statistics, we're low. We got the 20. Everyone else has, well, Hillsdale, I think, has 19 and someone else, and their population is similar. Westwood has 30, and they only have 11,000 people, 1,000 more, right? So you're
Right.
talking a big disparity between Hillsdale and Westwood, difference of 2,500 people, and you go from 19 to 30. That's a big difference. I don't mind giving you another officer or another police officer or a captain, but
Great.
that's not going to work for me.
In
Is
regards
there
to
anyone
that,
else
though,
in the public, I'm sorry, that
No.
would also like to come up and discuss, because this is also for you?
well, I just have one
Let's
question.
do it after they're done.
Would you, so, in that regard, then, because Hillsdale actually is 20 this year, they upped theirs, and so did Woodcliff Lake. They went up this year. You know, if deputy chief is a problem for most of the council, not saying it's a problem for me, but would you be, I could make the recommendation, would you be happy with 1 sergeant, 1 police officer on a change to the
I think that's a big step in the right direction. So if you, what we also are is we're calling for a corporal. And again, that gets back to the detective bureau. I need 4 sergeants in patrol. I need 4 sergeants in, I'm sorry, I need 4 sergeants patrol. I need 4 corporals in patrol. Then I just need a corporal or a sergeant in the bureau. So
2 sergeants?
yeah, so basically, I think what it comes down to is if we can go with the TO the way it's presently written, strike the deputy chief, take it out of there, and then proceed, as Steve said, with what we have, I think that would be even better, because that would actually give us 2 more sergeants.
I'm thinking a police officer, absolutely, to give you guys police officer. I'm not sold on the sergeant, and I'm not sold, you know, like another SLEO 2 and a police officer, but I'm not sold on another person having rank another sergeant. I definitely think we need more as the community grows. You know, we're going to have another building going up, and I definitely think we're going to need more police. Right now, I think we go with a police officer. I don't think sergeant. I don't think captain.
I think
Well, again,
sergeant
it
is,
says no more than, so they don't have to, it's not required. We just can't have more. If they
Can't
need the
have
next
more.
one, then the next
Yeah.
one. I don't think they're going to
That's my
fill a position
opinion. Mhm.
just because they have the opportunity to do so.
Right.
They want to have the flexibility because people are retiring.
I
You
think
have
they're
eight
going to fill the
people.
position. As me, I fill positions all the time. If I'm given a line item and someone tells me I get to have another charge nurse, I'm not just going to leave it there. I'm going to fill it with a charge nurse.
Okay, I
So
understand.
I think that would be a moot point to ask for it and not fill it. So I think that adding another police officer, I'll even say 2, whatever. But that I don't think giving somebody another rank is the best thing to do. That's
Okay,
my
listen,
opinion.
well, the
I
only
understand.
thing I have to say is that to just take into account that we have the professionals sitting in front of us. They know their department, their
Right.
organization. They know what they need in order to operate correctly and to operate within the law and how the table of organization is supposed to be.
Right.
We do have to take that into account above
And they
our,
do.
above.
Yep.
So if they are saying how important the sergeants are based upon the presentation, I think that's, unless there's something else you can add.
No,
about
no,
the
no, but
sergeant.
that's your opinion, and my opinion is what I just stated.
I wasn't going against your opinion. I was just
No,
saying.
but it's an implication
sorry,
that
I
I'm
just
not
wasn't-
taking what they're saying, not considering it, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
But
I
I-
really understand what they're saying.
So if you don't mind, I would
Yes.
really appreciate
Okay.
if you didn't put words in my mouth. What I'm saying too is that for the entire council and everybody up here to listen to what the professionals are telling us is very important for us to take it into account because they're operating the day to day.
Right.
And they're the ones, and I didn't specify you, I'm saying to everybody up here. It's not one person.
So I think I think that goes without
But that's your
saying.
opinion.
As a
I'm just
council
giving mine
up
and
here,
saying
I think we
everybody
are
should
taking
listen.
into consideration what they're
But please
saying.
don't put words in my mouth.
Listen, I think everybody's being reasonable. I think the key here really, if I can just, reiterate a few things. Steve sees the need for that increased supervision. And Steve, thank you, because I'm going to be frank, I thought you would be the hardest one to sell, and you understand it. And it makes me happy. We've known each other a long time.
Yes, we have.
The sergeant position, and you have a little experience with knowing sergeants. That is really our most important ask right now. I really, really, really could use 6 sergeants. I have to have 5 because I'm about to put one. You're going to pay for a sergeant for the next year anyway. I definitely need at least that sergeant. So I don't know if you wanted to say, if we increase 2 police officers and 1 sergeant to the sergeant rank and 1 corporal. Again, the corporal is pretty inexpensive. Right now, it's a $1,500 stipend, and the new contract, I believe it'll be about $2,000 if that's approved. So the corporal is kind of new. It doesn't cost a lot. So if we could add 2 police officers to the total TO, which is what it's written as now, instead of adding 2 sergeants, maybe we add 1 for now and see how that goes. That would be give me the ability to put one of those police officers out on loan and see how that's going. So I don't want to, like, I'm glad that we're kind of negotiating and talking about it. But the single biggest ask is that sergeant. I really could use 2. If you're going to vote for 1 and we can get 1, I'll
Rich,
take 1.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is there a time frame for getting the certification?
The accreditation?
The accreditation, yes.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so we fully expect to have it done in a year. However, the average that the Rogers Groups takes to get it done on an initial accreditation is between 12 and 18 months. And that's really going to depend not so much on us issuing the policies and proving that we're following them. There's going to be a fair amount of equipment upgrades. Most of them aren't that expensive. Just to give you an example of the first thing we already started working on day 6 of accreditation is, well, to be accredited for evidence, we need to have an outdoor storage facility. So for example, Westwood used a shed for outdoor storage and had an unfortunate incident where that shed was broken into right on police department property. So we've actually already obtained a shipping container from the 1032 program. Really, it's just going to cost us to ship it. We'll put it outside. That'll become our outdoor storage container. It has to have certain requirements. So
I guess where I'm going at,
Yeah.
we're talking about taking a sergeant who's well qualified and well versed in doing it, right? And we're putting him on full time.
Yeah.
Can we take that person, okay, and instead of doing 8-hour shifts doing paperwork, can we split them up, doing 4 here and then on the road? That's really my question,
Yeah,
because
no, we
if there's
could.
no time frame on it, we haven't had it for so long, and you guys have been doing a hell of a job without it.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
if
key
it
to
takes us
that,
2
yeah,
or 3
it's a-
years,
It's a
I'm
great
okay
question,
with that.
Steve. And the reason we chose that specific officer or that specific sergeant is because he also is the OEM coordinator and he's also the internal affairs coordinator. In other words, the captain will oversee internal affairs, but he doesn't do investigations.
Right.
He doesn't do the reporting. He's spending a significant amount of time on all those reports. I would say this, by the time accreditation is done, hopefully in a year, that sergeant will go back to patrol, and I expect that we'll have another patrol sergeant retiring probably within 6 months of that.
Okay.
I can't tell you when anybody's going to retire, but I can tell you we'll definitely have 1 police officer retiring in February. There's probably going to be a sergeant leaving in a year and a half. And then, like I said, everybody command staff here, we kind of like it here, but we're getting to that age in the next 2-3 years that we're probably, going to retire also.
And I'm just going off memories. And when we negotiated the Pittman contract, right? Because that was a big thing. I think a lot of people on the council were under the understanding by the time that new contract came around that we were going to be well into being accredited.
Right.
That's my recollection. And if we're far behind, okay, I don't know why that would be. I'm just kind of wondering where did that go?
We did request last year to budget for accreditation in 21. We were asked to just put it off a year because there was some other capital projects that were needed. So, the administration said, can you wait till next year? And we did. So we literally just started it. We had to wait for this capital to get approved so we could pay them the first payment to Rogers. And I can tell you this, we've hit the ground running on it. And that officer that's there. And again, this is the first time we've done this. The Rogers Group told us, you can do this with a guy working at part-time, but they highly, highly recommend that we put somebody on it full-time. So in good faith, we're trying to do what they recommend. If we find a couple months from now, we're not letting this officer, this sergeant sit around and twiddle his thumbs. He's busy. I mean, in fact, he's making us all busy because, we're getting 19 emails a day. How do we want to do this? How do you want to do that? And I don't want to put our new administrator on the spot, but he's a chief from accredited agency. You can tell you, it's at least initial accreditation, it's huge. It's a tremendous volume. Mark, if you want to just kind of review that. Mark was involved in their second accreditation, so it's
I understand it's a lot of work, but, again, we had the understanding,
Captain wants to jump in quickly.
that was going to be well down the road, and the former administrator said he had, a lot of this stuff canned already, and that we were going to be well on the road at this point. So I'm just wondering why we're so far behind.
Out of the policies that we're doing, there's 62 required policies. We have about 30 of those already done. The captain and myself have written those over the last 3-4 years. We recognize that in 3-4 years, 30 policies, we're not even quite halfway there. Those policies are also going to have to be updated, tweaked a little bit. That's probably not a lot of work, but the big work with accreditation is the 112 standards that have to be proven. So, for example, one of the standards is you make an arrest, you put the prisoner in there. When the prisoner is out of the car, you've got to search the back seat. Of course, we have to search the back seat when we start. So a lot of the accreditation stuff we've been doing, we always search the car. We always do a car check before our guys go on patrol. But now it has to be documented. It has to be in a report. And there's essentially a form that's filled out that says, yes, I checked the back of the patrol car before I arrested Johnny Jones. I checked the back of the patrol car after. And then we have to actually send them X number of reports to prove that we're doing what we say we're doing. And that's, to my knowledge, the biggest lift here. And honestly, we're just getting into it. So we're not even 100% sure what it's going to entail. I know that, I don't really read books at night. I lay in bed right now and read police policy.
Netflix, there you go. I get it. Again, I'm just wondering, because that was something that we talked about and
it's a
be
great
down
point.
the road. So I'm just wondering why we're so behind. And if there's a time when you got to get it done in 18 months, then by all means, put a guy on there and let's get it done.
Yeah, we're going to get it done in a year.
Penalized, but that's.
I'll tell you this, if we sit here next year and we're not done, you can hold me accountable for that. We're going to get it done in a year.
Okay. But again, just questions, that's all.
If I can, there were a few questions raised with regard to why we're assigning a sergeant to this, and the chief answered it very well. The one thing I want to add is I was approached with regard to accreditation manager. I spoke to a lot of agencies, and it's not just a paperwork function. It's significantly more. The person doing the accreditation managing has to be a critical thinker, and he has to have an intimate working knowledge of how this department functions. To use someone less than a sergeant, who's never supervised perhaps, or who doesn't supervise on a daily basis, he's not as intimately aware of our processes. The patrol, we have phenomenal officers, but they take direction from a sergeant, but the sergeant's giving the direction. He's a supervisory officer. So that's why the Rogers Group recommends that you use a supervisory officer at the minimum, if not a command staff officer. After speaking to the other agencies involved, when I looked into it with regard to accreditation manager, I was gung-ho on it. I wanted all over it, and I said, I'll take it if you take every other duty and responsibility that I have in this department away from me, because it is just that heavy of a lift. This guy, he's already been hustling like crazy, and I can tell you that it truly is just the tip of the iceberg. But the concept that it is just paperwork or just shuffling papers or anything like that couldn't be farther from the truth. He is helping to formulate policy that this department will run under. The chief issues the policy, but just formulating policy that meets these standards is an incredible amount of work, and it requires an incredible amount of critical thinking. And that's why a sergeant was chosen.
Just to piggyback off of John, if you want to just get into like the norm of how it's done, when we started this process of wanting to get accredited 2 years ago, probably less than half in Bergen County were accredited. Now 2/3 of Bergen County departments are accredited. And I can tell you just from my own experience, I couldn't give you exact numbers. A vast majority of those are sergeants and lieutenants that are accreditation manager. I don't even know a department as of now that has appointed somebody under the rank of sergeant as an accreditation manager. It really needs to be an experienced person who's familiar with how we do things. A lot of what's in accreditation we're already doing. It's just not written down or approved, and that's the gist of it. So I think, just back to what Council President Morgan was saying, if you're not comfortable with 2 sergeants and we can get one, we're paying for that sergeant for the next year anyway. And frankly, there's another one that's going to retire. So, if we can amend this, I don't know if you want to amend it tonight. I mean, I'll go retype it and have it done for you before we go.
Can't do it.
Okay, so
You need
I
to
can have
either-
it ready for next meeting. Why don't we can we agree to what we would want to do? And what I'm reading, if I can, is if we can increase the total TO from 20 to 22, complete, everybody added up. And technically, right now, we could, the way that ordinance is written, if we put a sergeant in the detective bureau, we could be at 21. The current ordinance allows us to be at 21. We've always stayed at 20 to keep it cleaner. So if we could get 22 total, and I can just get one more corporal and one more sergeant, and I will give you the promise that they'll never coexist. It's going to be one or the other. And as soon as accreditation is done, it's going to be in the bureau. So I would ask for 22 total and the ability to make a corporal and a sergeant out of those extra officers.
So you can either carry it 2 weeks and republish, because you can't vote on something that's not been published, or there'll be a vote on adopting the ordinance, and it will be not adopted, then you'd start over again. So whatever process
I would say
council
honestly,
wants to do.
whatever you recommend.
I would carry it for 2 weeks, but you need to have consensus on the revised ordinance. I'm not sure if you
I can
do.
tell you this, I'll have the revised version in your inbox before you get home tonight.
So I can say that I know what I would agree to. It would be one sergeant, nothing more. One sergeant, not a sergeant and a patrolman. We really need more people on the street, honestly, we really do. So I would take a sergeant.
Sergeants are on the street though?
Yeah, I would take one more sergeant.
So you're saying,
But no
Ms.
other-
Morgan, go to 21
Yes.
total
Mhm.
and reduce or take out the deputy chief?
Right.
Why not give two? If the police officers are lower rank with the number of people who are retiring, 6 up now and 8
When I
up
see them
February
retire-
1st, then why wouldn't would anybody else in the council agree to 2?
I agree to 2.
Desiree?
Mhm.
A sergeant and a police officer is really what we need. We really
Then
need
vote,
it now.
But that's not going to be my.
We need it now. I know what you're saying,
Mhm.
but we really need it now.
If I could just jump in, because I'm looking
It
at,
takes 3, you got 3. I'm
Yeah,
going to
I'm-
stay firm with what I
I'm
said.
looking at Councilman Sears and I'm thinking the best way I can explain it and for Tom to truly understand it is, who's the most important guy in the Marine Corps? That's sergeant, right? Sergeants were the backbone of the Marine Corps because they were our leaders. The commanding officer is there, but it's the sergeants that are getting it done. So,
That's why I have a sergeant, I agree to a sergeant, yeah.
I really need a police officer on the street also.
And the sergeant is a
Yeah.
police officer.
And and a regular police officer.
Mhm. Then by all means, vote
So I'll
however you
make a-
guys want. We're not doing it now.
No, I wanted to
no.
ask Mr. Lamontina, how did we,
It has to be amended.
You
No,
carry
I understand.
tonight. You would carry the public hearing for 2 weeks, and in the meantime, you would amend the ordinance and republish it
Okay.
with the change.
with
So
the
if you have-
one sergeant and the one
Whatever your
corporal?
consensus is. So it sounds like you have a consensus for 2 additional officers, 1 sergeant, 1 patrolman. So if someone votes no, that's their prerogative.
Right, no, but we have to carry it
You
for
have to
2
carry
weeks.
it. You can't, because you published the old ordinance.
So I'm making a recommendation to carry this for 2 weeks to amend the ordinance for 1 sergeant and 1 patrolman. Or,
First, you need to close the,
no, right, but I'm putting it on record that I'm making the recommendation for 1 sergeant and 1 corporal.
Patrolman.
next one. Okay. Unless,
No, we need.
what could you get? I mean, it's a simple change.
I'm sorry, so
Please.
you want a corporal, not a patrolman?
We need,
So-
we need police officers,
Yeah, so
but
listen,
we need a sergeant.
first of all, I'd like to add that one police officer.
If
I
you
think
can
we're all agreeing on that. As far as a corporal and a sergeant, I really don't need both. And honestly, I'll tell you now, I'm not going to make both. It's just like right now we have a corporal in the detective bureau, which means there's 1 squad in patrol that doesn't have a corporal. I like to have the corporal there because when the sergeant's out, the corporal's there. However, if there was a sergeant in the detective bureau, then I would need a corporal in the detective bureau, but I only have 1. So basically, I need an additional officer, police officer, and an additional sergeant with the option that if we went back to 4 sergeants, then I might have a corporal in the detective bureau. So, and that's not even a big deal because corporal's kind of a transition rank anyway. It's kind of a stepping stone, it's a training position. So if you want to keep it simple and say, we're going to add a police officer, we're going to add a sergeant, and everybody's agreeable with that, I think we're on the right track there.
I'm sorry, Chief, can you just repeat what you just said? Keep it
Yeah,
simple.
so
Sorry.
I think the corporal rank is important because I'd like to have a corporal. I have a corporal that's in the detective bureau right now. I don't have one in patrol. So that's why I want the extra corporal. However, if the corporal in the detective bureau, say, would be the next sergeant possibly, I wouldn't replace another corporal. He would just get promoted. I wouldn't, because I'd have my corporals in patrol.
Mhm.
What I just need is, I can't pull somebody out of my detective bureau every time they get a promotion.
Right.
Richard, are you going to share any of these sergeants now? We talked about, some are going up to be trainers up at the police academy and some are going to the FBI. Are we going to do that with these sergeants, or are we going to have them on?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't share my sergeants, but I probably would look to have a patrolman on loan. We do have officers that teach at the police academy. I mean, I taught there for a lot of years myself. Really, probably the only sharing function I would have with that extra sergeant also is that, we know we have another pending retirement. So that sergeant would give me the ability to, for a short period of time, once accreditation is done, and we know who the next sergeant's going to be, the additional sergeant could mentor that sergeant. In other words, right now, we have a field training officer. As soon as you get hired as a police officer, you go through field training at the academy. We actually want to create a sergeant's field training program where we field train our sergeants. It's not something we're currently doing.
I guess my thing is we're going to put 2 more people on the payroll, okay? I don't want to be loaning them out to the FBI or the DEA at this point. I'd like to have them in town. Okay? That's what I'm looking for. I know it's a great experience. I know a lot of other municipalities do it for a number of reasons, and it's a great idea. If you have the manpower and you can spare one, that's great. But I think right now, if we're having the increase in population, now is probably not a good time to do it. That's just a question I have.
Listen, if that's a stipulation, Steve, I would agree to say, we're not going to put anybody out on loan immediately. Maybe we can revisit it next year, because honestly, there's a lot of paperwork to set something like that up. We can come to PTO. I think we probably would do a council resolution anyway. So yeah, we can hold on, for sure.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So.
All right, is there anyone else in public that would like to come up and talk and ask a question or discuss? Come on up.
Michael Ullman, 2 Clark Avenue. So there's been a lot of talk about heads and ranks. Do we know the financial impact for 2022, the remaining of it, if there's going to be action on it? And do we know the financial impact with the new contract? And then in terms of the additional officer and loaning out, I did overhear the discussion between the councilman and the chief, but it just seemed to me that there was a driver there that we can get an extra officer, get him on the DEA and hope that he covers his salary and, through this forfeiture money. There's no guarantee of that. I don't know if there's a guarantee he goes to the DEA. And if, that's the role that we're looking to fill, then maybe we should have in the table of organization an officer dedicated for outside, assignment. But it just doesn't seem to me the way to manage the overall staff is to hire someone so you hopefully can loan them out and hopefully recover not only their salary, but add to some forfeiture account. I don't know if there was a firm decision on the deputy chief, but I would follow in Councilman Cassio's, or I would say that.
Recommendation?
Yes, thank you. It seems to me that we either have a captain or a deputy chief, not one or the other, depending on the way the wind blows or the way that individual who's there wants to be treated, either inside or outside the CBA. If you go outside the CBA, you should be outside the CBA. And I agree with Mr. Cat or Councilman Casio that, there should not be contracts for the chief of police or the deputy chief if there is one. That's, you leave that, the shelter of the CBA and, you enter part of the administration. Why have a contract that basically replicates the CBA agreement and all of those protections? I mean, if the individual in that role is doing that job, then, they should be compensated per the salary ordinance, and that's the way it, is. It should be considered, or at least that's my opinion. The council also has provided quite a bit of support for the police, and I believe Chief Skinner did mention that. When I was on council, we were asked to fund a system called RDMS, which I believe is in use. I believe it was put in place because it was supposed to assist with this specific function. There was automation, there was storage of records, there was sign-off acknowledgement, all of these things that we were on the council told that these things would be available through this system. It was provided for. So I'm at a bit of a loss as to why we're not hearing about it, but, is that not still in use in the force? And is it not that benefit?
I can answer all those when you're done.
You want an answer?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that now?
Or do you have more questions?
Answer all of
We can wait till I'm done.
them. Yeah, when you're done, I'll be happy to answer whatever questions you have.
And the last thing, and Chief Skinner, I don't mean this with any disrespect, but you mentioned that for the past, I think you made a comment, the past 20 years, I think you alluded to a sort of maybe a leadership gap or a driver to get us to accreditation. I mean, that's how I interpreted your comment.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a leadership gap. I would call it a gap in adherence to Attorney General guidelines and policies.
Okay.
There were a lot of things that the department was not adhering to. And I'm not going to get into really
Okay.
anything further than that. I can tell you that we were not meeting a lot of requirements. There are certain things that are guidelines. There are certain things that are requirements. And, in a policy, if it says you shall do this, you have to do it. There was a lot of things we weren't doing, and, I didn't mean to insult anybody. It's just the department has increased professionally tremendously. And it's really just a matter of, because we've documented those things and we've put certain policies in place. And again, part of that answer, I'll also cover Power DMS, when you're ready for me to answer.
Yeah, he has a couple, you have 27 seconds. It's
Okay,
fine.
so
Go ahead.
my only comment, which I didn't finish, was that, you at one point were part of the executive office suite. You were a command officer. So, if we talk about, and, in my, where I work, in the corporate world, these issues arise, and there are people or there are individuals who are either promoted or are in a role that had the ability to influence that didn't. And all I would say is that, we have to be self-reflective when we look at this.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that. So let me start off by saying I think I am self-reflective. Until you are the chief executive officer, you can make recommendations. You necessarily can't institute them. And just to give you an example, so some of the things that we brought on board just in the last 2-3 years is Power DMS. Power DMS is exactly that. DMS is a document management system. It manages documents. It's completely necessary for accreditation, because before Power DMS, we were signing off on paper and a clipboard, and then that paper had to be filed. This manages our documents. It ensures that the officers are reading them. In fact, when you read a directive in Power DMS, it times how long you've done that directive. So Power DMS is absolutely essential. Yes, we are still using it. Most departments had Power DMS 15 to 20 years ago. We got it 2 years ago because we were behind the times. When I went to the executive leadership course given by FBI LEDA, I sat next to a sergeant from Westchester County, and he said, "Hey, what's new in your department?" I said, "Well, we just went to POS, electronic scheduling. It's the greatest thing in the world. I love it." He laughed and he goes, "I've been on the job 16 years. We had it 16 years ago." So I'm not saying there's a leadership gap. I'm just saying that we've instituted in the last couple of years money. And a lot of that's not just the leadership. It's the ability of this council that if we come in here and we give an intelligent and articulate presentation, they generally give us the money we need to run the show. So, we previously couldn't obtain a lot of the technological systems because, one, we didn't have the money, and two, maybe senior leadership was a little older and they weren't quite as tech savvy. And I'll be honest, I'm the first one to tell you, I'm not tech savvy, but that's why I have a command staff, and that's why I employ our younger guys. As far as the deputy chief, we fully agreed, Mike, to take the deputy chief out of the picture. Personally, I think it's a shame because if you listen to the captain, I think he gave such an intelligent and articulate presentation tonight that, I wish it was within our powers to do it. We're not going to do it. So, that's already been taken out. Your other question, I think, was, I wrote them all down. One was financial. So, that additional sergeant, it is about a little over $13,000 increase, $13,070. The corporal right now is $1,500. Next year, if the collective bargaining agreement goes through, it would be $2,000, I believe, and I don't want to quote the new contract because it's not signed. I'm not 100%, but is that what we're looking at, gentlemen?
Yes, it's 2,000.
Yeah, so 2,000 is about correct. So, I think what we're doing isn't a serious financial impact, and also keep in mind that we're hiring these officers with the anticipation of officers retiring. So when we hire a new officer and then somebody else on staff retires, there is a savings. So I think, next year, the base salary is going to go up a little bit, and then it's going to trend down over the next couple of years. Mike, I hope I've answered everything. If I haven't, Pete, please feel free to email me. I'd be happy to discuss it with you.
Is there anyone?
Can I just answer something real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
So to part of Mr. Ullman's question was, as far as loaning somebody out, that would be an option for us if we got the 2 extra officers. We don't get the second officer, it's not really an option for us. So that most likely will not happen because the 1 extra officer just balances our squads.
Right.
We would have 4 4-man squads on patrol. And that's really what we need to have. The extra officer would help with the detective bureau and a possible option of loaning him out. But it's not guaranteed.
Thanks, and I'm glad that Lieutenant McCord brought up loaning. And I can say this, my experience, I've never had an officer on loan, so I can't tell you how much money he'd bring back. But I can tell you that every single chief I've spoken to, which is no less than 14 or 15 chiefs that has an officer on loan, is ecstatic about the program and they are bringing the money back. Is that money guaranteed? No. I would say, let's say right now we add 1 more officer. We're not going to put anybody on loan. If we come back next year and agree to hire, another officer and be able to put somebody out on loan, of course we would come to an agreement that if it wasn't working out, we'd pull them. I mean, we're not going to do something wrong and have it keep being wrong. We're going to constantly evaluate what we're doing. So, the fact that we would put somebody out on loan and just hope to make the money back or guess that we're going to make the money back, we're not guessing. It's an educated proposal based on the research that we've conducted. So it's not just a fly-by-night thing. It's something that's a proven in other departments that touch us.
Is there anyone else that would like to come up and discuss this particular topic, though? Okay. Just your name and address.
Sure. Bob Stickle, 191 Walnut Street. I'd just like to commend all these gentlemen here on the presentation tonight. It was excellent. And I don't know what people up there on the dais heard the same presentation I did. But I mean, if you make a captain a deputy chief and you do away with overtime, maybe the current captain is not taking his time in in money, but, running a business, if I have an employee who's not there and someone else has to do the work, there's a cost. There may be a soft cost versus a hard cost. So, they're talking about $4,000 or $5,000 average increase. And the chief said when he was in a position of captain, it was $20,000. There's a cost here. I mean, we need to look at costs. And just to say that to save the money because some people don't want to have a deputy chief versus a captain, I think is a little ridiculous. I really do. I think we're arguing over pennies here. They talked about all the reporting they have to do with these cameras. I mean, you need people to do that. And if you can't get it done and it's got to get done, guess what? You're going to be paying that person overtime to do it. So, I mean, I really commend them on the presentation. For 30 years in my business, I worked with a lot of police departments, and I think we're very lucky to have the people with their expertise running our police department. So I would urge the council to reconsider some of this stuff and give what they're asking for this evening. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up?
I would just like to say thank you also.
Okay, thank you.
That's a valid point. If the overtime difference, that would cover the $13,000 increase, right? So if we were to do deputy chief, and there's a $15,000 difference between deputy chief and the overtime from captain, that would cover the additional cost of the sergeant for the $13,000. So you actually have a wash there for something we've already paying for in our budget versus having an additional increase because we will still have a captain with overtime and a sergeant with the $13,000 increase. So thank you, Mr. Stickle, for pointing out it's a very valid point.
Stacy, if I can build on that, the concept here with regard to the ordinance is we're talking about one person here, two persons here. The bottom line is the chief needs the ability to run his department the way he sees fit. He might not fill all these positions at any given moment, but if the chief sees, if a sergeant says he's retiring in 6 months and there's a slot going to be open, it'd be really great to have that slot open a little early so that the chief could fill it in anticipation of that retirement, so that there can be some turnover, so that we could undertake the process beforehand. Right now, with such a tightly controlled, a tightly limited ordinance, you take away the chief's one portion of the chief's ability to administer his department. By having a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of flexibility, saying, okay, you guys can have 22 officers instead of 20. Doesn't mean they have to be filled at all times. Doesn't mean the chief's going to do that. You're the governing body. The chief answers to you. We all answer to you. You have control over these things as well. So to limit this, I think, is somewhat short-sighted. This is what I think it misses a bit of the point where we say, we're a 20-man department, but if someone leaves, it takes me 1 full year to replace that person's position. And for that year, we're really a 19-man department. And if you include the officer that has to be pulled out, the existing officer that has to be pulled out to conduct some field training, you're down to an 18-man department just because you didn't have the opportunity or the ability to fill those positions in anticipation of retirement. That's why it may be lost, but that's why we hammer home the concept that to have 8 officers in a 20-man department eligible for retirement is big. I don't know if anyone's looked at the statistics, how officers have been pulling out of this profession at a rapid rate. It's a reality.
I'm sorry, let me just stop you there. Those 6 that you mentioned, though, they're coming up on 25, right? Not 30?
6 currently have over 25 and can retire at any moment.
The other 2 are coming up on 25? Okay.
They'll reach 25 in February. So again, it's giving the chief just the ability to administer his department. When he anticipates someone leaving, he can fill the position or attempt to fill the position. Wouldn't it be great if we had 4 sergeants filled and we had 6 in our TO? And now the chief can say, oh, all right, Sarge, you're leaving in 6 months? Great. I'd like to make you sergeant. We go through the process, and now the sergeant who's exiting can show the sergeant who's coming in some of the ropes from a different perspective. Now he's a sergeant. Maybe there can be some mentorship. That's the way the world is moving, into mentorship and things like this. And having a little breathing room in that TO enables us to do that. It enables the chief to administer his department. Desiree, you mentioned if someone gives me an extra charge nurse, I'm going to take it. Absolutely. But when you say to your supervisors, I need an extra charge nurse, and they say no, don't you think that that you're the person with the boots on the ground? You know exactly what you need and exactly how to ask for it and exactly how to articulate it when you do. And your supervisor says, no, I just don't agree with it. That's somewhat.
I'm not saying it like that though, John. I'm not saying, no. I've taken into consideration.
Okay, the tone may have been different.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's very different.
Absolutely, and if I mischaracterize that, I do apologize.
Okay.
But to say, you've said no, but you've said what you think, but I didn't hear why you think it. Again, this is over 100 years of police experience in front of you.
Right.
And at least.
I'm saying yes to the sergeant. I can't just give everything because it's asked. I can't do
No,
that.
I understand
That'll never
that.
be me in this seat. So I have
But
to be
if it's
prudent.
well articulated,
It
then
was
perhaps
very
you can.
well. It was very well articulated.
Okay.
But there's other needs we have also in the community, and let's be honest,
Absolutely.
we're not having homicides by the dozen. We're not having. I would rather have what we need and put them out on the street than have the potential to put someone out on loan with other people's money because it costs
Absolutely.
money. So that's my why. If we were going to have to wrap up, just any closing comments?
Let me just close it if I could. So this is what I'm thinking. We're not going to make a deputy chief at this point. We're not going to put an officer out on loan. I would like to reserve the right to maybe come back next year.
Absolutely.
And speak about having that officer on loan. So what I would propose is that we add one police officer for a total of 21. We'll amend that. We'll add the one corporal rank and the one sergeant rank. And I'll tell you that we're not going to have both of those. It's just going to be if there's the ability to have a sergeant or a corporal in the detective bureau. At this point, we already have a corporal, so at some point it may become a sergeant. So if I can just amend it to adding a police officer, the one corporal rank and the one sergeant rank, that I think would be a fantastic compromise. I think we've all gotten to that point. I think I can read the room. And then maybe next year I'll come back and talk about putting an officer out on loan. And we'll have a presentation, my command staff will have a presentation that will so impress Mr. Omen that he'll get up and fight for us to put an officer out
So
on loan.
next year you'll be proposing 23?
Nope, right now we propose 22, we're
Right,
dialing
and
it
you're
back to
saying you'd like to
21.
come back.
Next year I'm going to propose back to 22, just to put a guy out on loan.
Okay.
It could be an experimental thing, we can do it by resolution, however you want to do it. Right now, if we can go out of here and say, we're adding a police officer and then adding either that corporal or the sergeant, but the ability to do either one, so put those two ranks in there. But I think we're good. And I think that's, if I'm reading the room, I think that's kind of where we're all at.
Total of 21 police officers.
Yep.
Force.
Yes.
Including you, right? 21.
Absolutely.
Taking out the deputy chief,
Yes, sir.
right? I can do that.
Thank you, Steve.
I can do that.
too.
Great.
I can do that.
I'm assuming that.
So wait, but it's a total of 22,
I
not
thought
a
I
total
heard
of
22,
20.
chief.
It's not 22.
I thought the
No, I
consensus.
think,
I said no to 22. I thought you were saying
It's not
22 also.
22.
It's 21.
We're only increasing by one police officer. We're creating an additional rank of sergeant or corporal.
So you're
So
gonna
you're-
add one more of
Right.
one of those,
Right.
either or. They're gonna decide.
But that's not increasing the total.
Number
number.
Right,
21.
right. So you guys were actually increasing it by 2?
Well, that was the
Just writing
original conversation.
Not writing it off.
Okay.
I think
Exactly,
we need-
not writing it
I
off.
think
Okay.
we need the men on the streets.
So what about, so our recommendation is different. Our recommendation is to give you 2 additional officers.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm a
In
no on
general.
that.
The sergeant
I'm a no on
and
that.
the
I would be
sergeant and
yes
the
on that
patrolman.
initially.
Mr.
at
Lyon.
this point, honestly,
I think we need more
Beat it
time.
up. I'd like to almost like hedge my bet at this point. Let's start with one more police officer with the additional corporal and/or sergeant, and then we'll go from there. And then honestly, next year, I will have a full presentation about the advantages of putting an officer out on loan because, I didn't have time tonight and
Yeah, we
we
want
don't have
to.
time to really go
So-
through exactly everything.
Yeah.
But putting officer out on loan is a win-win and I'll talk about that next year when it.
So Chief,
Chief, there's 3
we
of
want,
us
we want,
that
to- we would
to.
like to.
We would like
Okay.
to.
We're with 2. So that's where we are.
All right, so then I'll write it up as 22, with those 2 additional, and then we should in theory be 3 yeses and 2 nos. I mean, listen, I don't want to come back next week and we lose this thing. We've made so much progress. So if we got 3, let's go with 22 and we'll get the 3 votes and I'll put it up for
I
for
think
next week.
it's really easy when you are not in the thick of it
Yeah.
to just write it off. But You're the professionals.
Yeah, we've
I
been in
wanna
the thick
give
of
you
this thing
two.
for a long time. And honestly, I
Yes.
might just be, I might just be happy the fact that I kind of had Steve at 22 also, and it just made me happy, you know, like, Steve's a tough sell sometimes, and he's prudent.
Listen,
You know?
you know, I stick to my guns, right, Rich?
You do,
And I told you-
absolutely.
I told you in the
Yeah.
past how I felt, and we respect each other for that, and I think we
We
all
do.
do.
We do.
So, you know, I'm okay. I'm actually okay with 22.
Great.
But I want to make sure those people are on the road. Not to disrespect anyone that does paperwork, because I'd rather be teaching and doing lesson plans, because I hate doing lesson plans, okay? But it's part of the program, okay? And I understand we have to cover, but I want to make sure for what we're paying in taxes, we have good protection. And the only way you get good protection is by having people on the street. That's it.
Listen, I
That's the
cannot-
bottom line.
I cannot
So,
disagree with that whatsoever.
However, with 22 though, now you have the option to put someone on loan,
However,
which I like.
in good faith, if Steve is saying he wants 22 and he wants to hold off, I'm putting somebody on loan. I'll hold off on putting somebody on loan.
I think we can revisit.
Frankly,
that.
I'd rather get through accreditation before we put somebody on loan anyway.
Yeah.
So let's revisit the on loan thing next year. Let's go
I
with
think it's an
22
opportunity
total.
to explore.
with the option of the corporal and the sergeant, 22, the corporal and the sergeant. I will write that up, and when I say I'll write it up, I'll actually say to the captain, John, please write this up, because he's better at markups than I am in
We're
Word.
giving the opportunity. They don't have to hire
Yeah.
an extra person or two extra people.
Yeah, and honestly, we're probably not gonna hire those two right away. I'm gonna hire one, and then it takes a while. Hiring process is now
very difficult.
a year, you know, it's gonna take a while.
And
So,
And just to the council, if we change our mind, we don't have to budget for that extra officer or whoever it is. Again, that comes down to.
yeah, you guys have the financial control. It's a great point, Steve. You guys
you
have
wanna do
financial control. You know, when I come to you with a salary number, you can say, you know what, hold on. Yeah, it's a great point. Steve.
I'm
Thank you.
staying off of mine.
Let's make a motion. All right, so
Okay,
we'll have that
motion
written up, and I'm not sure if we have Mr. Lamatina's email. Should we send that to you, to Ken, to everybody?
Copy me, send it to Ken, he'll copy me. He'll send it to me. But, so I'm going to sum up once we close the open session. So-
Please.
So motion to close public hearing for ordinance 22-16.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the agenda has for the next item, a motion to adopt. There's an
Make-
option to make that motion and adopt as written, but I'm hearing that the consensus is to carry this and to bring it back with a revised ordinance. So rather than motion to adopt,
I'll make
I would
a,
ask if there's a
make a
motion.
I'll
motion
make motion
to,
to, yeah.
to move it
Carry.
to 2
Carry it.
weeks.
Mhm.
I think it might have to be 4
It's
weeks.
gonna be, yeah, it's gotta be 4 weeks because we're not in the 10-day period because we're starting on a Tuesday. So, yeah,
Do we have to
We'll
vote to
make a motion to
republish
carry.
again?
Yes, that's the
So
point.
the 2 weeks
Yeah,
will be to republish, and then the 2 weeks after that will be the hearing.
Correct.
No, well,
no,
no, it's gotta be published because it's a holiday yesterday.
Correct.
I lost a day for publication. I don't have 10
9
days
days.
between the meetings.
Right.
So it'd be reintroduced to have, we start, we're not starting from scratch. So it'd be a carryover and adoption for the first meeting in October.
Correct. And you'll publish the revised ordinance that should get to you in a few days.
Right.
So that would be the motion, if you can ask for that.
okay. Motion to carry over ordinance number 22-16 at second reading. Yeah.
So moved.
Wouldn't it be a first since it's gonna be amended?
No.
No, okay.
No, it's gonna be second
Second reading in 4 weeks.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
I'm just gonna make sure I have, okay, second is by Steve.
Roll call, we'll do roll call.
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilwoman Feeney.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President Morgan.
Yes. Okay.
I just want to say thank you to the council. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the discussion. And, you know, we'll have that to Mr. Powell and Mr. Lamatina right away. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Council President?
Yeah.
Council President?
Yes.
We take 5.
Maybe 7.
Why don't we get to the.
Yeah, let's get through this first.
Publics first, and
Yeah.
then we'll-
You want me to-
people have been waiting. Anyone on
Oh,
Anyone on Zoom?
Thank you so much.
Nobody's, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I meant to say it.
All right, so introduction.
Excuse me, Council President, may I make a quick comment about everything that was just discussed?
Can we just get through this first, please?
I mean, it applies to what we just spoke about,
Go
so.
ahead, go ahead.
Now, I stayed quiet because you were interviewing and asking questions. However, I'd like to point out from my own perspective, I run this like a business. I think it's my job as mayor, especially in this form of government. In my businesses that I've owned, I've either worked my way up from the bottom to the top, and so no one could kid me as to what was going on in the business, or the businesses where I've started on the top, I've trusted my professionals. That served me very well. I'm only speaking for me. I think that, none of us up here, to my knowledge, have any police experience. So I equate it to the businesses I've started at the top, and I listen to my people. I think we're doing a disservice by not listening and taking these people's recommendations for what is a relatively small amount of money in their total budget and the total budget of the town. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I appreciate the opportunity.
So
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that we are stewards of other people's money, right? We are stewards of this town being up here. If we are not supposed to, I wouldn't say challenge, but if we are not supposed to ask as many questions and draw as many lines as we can to say, stop, I need more information, then why are we up here? Why don't we just sign straight across? Whatever you need, you're the experts, you know what you're saying. I mean, that can be applied to every single person who comes up here. It can be applied to DPW. It can be applied to anybody asking us to increase their budget because they are the experts. That is not prudent. It is not responsible, and it is not something I will ever sign off on. So yes, there is absolute credence there. I give the utmost respect for people in their business. But when I go to a boardroom and I'm asking it's budget time, or I'm asking in the middle of budget season that I need more, regardless of how great my presentation is, that I really may be doing a great job and we need it. There's a global picture. There's other things in town that we have to pay for. And we can't just carte blanche say, well, you're the expert, you know what you need. And that's all I have to say. So. We're going to go to introduction, first reading, ordinance number 22-17, and ordinance revising fees within the building department of the Township of Washington. Motion to introduce and pass ordinance number 22-17 at first reading by title.
So move.
Second.
Sue, roll call.
Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilwoman Feeney,
Yes.
Councilman Sears,
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez,
Yes.
Council President Morgan.
Yes. Resolution number 22-321, authorizing publication of ordinance number 22-17 and scheduled public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Hold on a second.
Coming after me.
Motion and you second.
Tom.
I motioned.
Tom,
Oh,
second.
Thank you. Sorry.
Roll call, please.
Which one are we on, Desiree?
Resolution number 22-321, authorizing publication. I'm sorry. Yeah. authorizing-
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
publication, yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilwoman Feeney,
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President Morgan.
Yes. Okay. The following items have been determined to have the unanimous consent of council and will be enacted in one motion. Should any item require independent consideration, any council member may have such item removed from the consent agenda. Anyone have anything they'd like removed or for discussion?
22-329, pull it for separate vote for me, please.
Anything else? Okay. Resolution number 22-322, resolution number 22-323, resolution number 22-324, resolution number 22-325, resolution number 22-326, Resolution number 22-327, Resolution number 22-328, Resolution number 22-330, Resolution number 22-331, Resolution number 22-332, Resolution number 22-333, Resolution number 22-334. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then Councilman Casio, Resolution number 22-329.
Motion.
I'll make a motion for a separate vote on that one.
Okay. I'll second.
What's the motion, I'm sorry?
He wants to discuss
Oh, discuss.
329.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to vote on it separately, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody want discussion?
He wants to vote on it separately.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, excuse me.
For
Are you asking for
22329,
discussion? I'll second it.
He wants to vote on it separately,
Oh,
no
okay.
discussion. Do you have a discussion? Anything you'd like to talk
No.
about? No? Okay. All right, so motion to approve, 22-329.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, Sue?
Councilman Casio,
no.
Councilwoman Feeney,
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez,
Yes.
Council President Morgan.
Yes. Okay, so I think we're just adjourning to,
Can we please take a break?
adjourn to conference agenda. After, sure. Yeah. So I guess, should we adjourn first?
Yeah.
To conference agenda and then take a 5 minutes? All right, so, motion to adjourn, I'll motion, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5 minutes. So we're leaving at 11 regardless. Mayor, the first one is yours.
Thank you. Yes, per the recommendation, per the recommendation of the Recreation Coordinator, we'd like to withdraw the one sentence in the ordinance that says there shall be a $25 per registration refund fee. The reason is when this was implemented years ago, it required producing a paper check to refund people. Now that everyone pays via Community Pass, he told me it takes him 2 minutes to go in and issue the refund to their credit card. So it does not have the administrative cost that it used to. So, we want to be fair to our residents. And back then there was a reason for it, but that reason has disappeared. So we would request that the council revisit this ordinance and just pull out that one sentence in the refunds paragraph.
That's a good thing.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So if everybody's in agreement to it, we can have Mr. Powell do an introduction for the next meeting. Everybody's in
Yes.
agreement?
Want to do?
Sounds good.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Is there anyone not in agreement with that?
Can you just tell me we discussed?
Yeah, so we're talking about refund fees. The mayor suggested, he proposed to remove the refund fees for like registrations. Sorry, recreation fee, like registrations, if they're not going to do it because the administrative fee is no longer relevant. It's not a return check anymore. It's a simple couple of keystrokes and it gets returned to their bank.
Okay with it.
Okay. All right, perfect. Next is Mr. Mayor as well.
Thank you again. I think I had the architect do what the council asked for. So in your packet, there are 4 additional renderings of the building that he is proposing. Let me say, based on Mr. Stickles' comments and handouts, I will certainly ask the architect for his opinion on a steel building for them. But just want to keep this moving. So steel or I'll call it traditional. Does anyone have any further comments as these renderings continue to come from the architect?
Mr. Mayor, this rendering will go all the way, get rid of the ambulance corps building, and it'll be part of the DPW, what we talked about the last meeting?
Well, let me say that this footprint does not overlay the current ambulance corps building. It's more toward where the garages used to be and where the 2 structures are now. But I can say in checking with the architect as far as doing anything at the ambulance building for the police, vis-a-vis a Sally Port or anything, he has ruled that possibility out. He said there are too many deficiencies in that building to even try and do that. The ambulance will not be going toward a police use. I can tell you that because it just doesn't fit the criteria.
Well, that's good to know that, because the DPW is definitely could use that for storage.
Is that what the alternative use would be? Something to continue with DPW?
It's open to whatever anyone can think of at the moment. I'm not in a rush to tear the building down because, like I said in a previous meeting, all the DPW equipment cannot fit in that footprint. So either way, we're going to have to do something off-site for the equipment. So if it could all fit there, I'd be the first one with the sledgehammer knocking it down. But I want to make sure we exhaust all possibilities of an existing building before tearing it down.
Is there something on the table?
No, if council has any suggestions, happy to entertain anything at this point.
I would just love to use that piece of real estate and cover the equipment that we do have, as mentioned. And I did have a conversation earlier this week with somebody who brought it up. And then tonight it was mentioned also that it's out in the element, and some of our equipment, is going to be under snow soon. It's going to rust. So I would love to see it covered so that it's not seeing 2 or 3 winters out in the snow. So if we could, maybe even that's where that metal building would come in, depending on the cost, in that space to take down the brick and mortar building and put something where it's just a covered port for all of our equipment, so we wouldn't have to pay extra storage. It wouldn't stay at the swim club, and it would be covered from the element. That's my suggestion.
Okay. we'll take that
Yeah,
under
that was
consideration.
my item on here is I'd like to get a list of the DPW equipment that we currently have with some square footage numbers, because from what I can see from what we have from previous asset listings for the town, we definitely don't have enough space. So I wanted to know what alternatives was. I know that there's some DPWs that are using racking, and I didn't know if that could be incorporated. Racking. So there's commercial grade racking, and it's made from steel. And what happens is that either you have an elevator, forklift, or it has its own
Like the parking lots in
Right.
New York City.
or a hydraulic system that raises the items up and down. And I was wondering about the height of the building, if that may be something that can be entertained in the back to accommodate, because I've seen it in a few DPW buildings. I've been doing a little research where they have the hydraulic systems that, kind of like you see in the Fast and the Furious, where in Tokyo, where they have the cars that rotate.
But we do have that big military forklift that could pick things
Well,
up.
Again, it's not my area of expertise. It's just a recommendation. So, but racking and storage, I mean, there's a lot of great innovative.
Okay.
That's
Rather than just leave the building there,
yeah.
No, I'm not talking about the ambulance corps building. I'm saying my question was the elevation of the existing building.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then
I'm glad you clarified. I thought you were talking ambulance building.
Or extending it, maybe a storage building, in another location. I don't know where. You guys really need to look at the size and the space to encompass the racking storage that I've been seeing in a few other DPWs.
Now I'm more confused,
No,
unfortunately.
I
Are you
think
saying try and do that in what's being shown with the existing building, with the 5 bays and the offices above, to try and get more storage space in that same footprint?
Well, that was my second part of my question before the first part of the question. So it's actually reversed. So
Okay.
the back here where the doors are, in the back with the window above it, it's the side view of the building.
Yes, I'm on that one.
Okay, so the trucks go all the way back. That's all open, correct?
Yes,
And
correct.
it's tandem, I'm assuming it's tandem trucks throughout the building.
I mean, depending on the size of the truck they have in there,
So you
it could be a single, like if they're doing work on a garbage truck, that would take up a whole bay. Smaller trucks, you might be able to get 2 in.
So, the thing is that if we did go higher, you would be impacting our neighbors, which we are going to be impacting them anyway. But I was thinking,
Our biggest neighbor's Valley Bank.
Yeah, I don't think
and
they
so-
care.
Yeah.
well, Hudson has had, view of the DPW
Sure.
for a long time.
Mhm.
So, but that's sure it's fine.
Marvelous.
You said that, not me. So, what I was thinking that if there was somewhere else where we could utilize that type of building, whether it's where the ambulance corps building is or somewhere else to leverage the metal building with the racking system, I think that would be prudent.
Okay.
Because that would also allow for growth of additional equipment if necessary. It wouldn't just be limited to floor space.
I guess I'm hung up on why, if we're so desperate for real estate, why are we keeping a building that we don't have an actual plan for, when we could just plan to use that to cover, to use that as part of our DPW?
Well, I think that was my question, is because I think with the amount of equipment that remains that's not going in the building, that still is not going to be enough space. So that's why I wanted to get the list of equipment, the square footage on the equipment, the square footage on the building, and how much that would add to the ambulance corps building if it is going to add more value. Because then are we going to end up with a building here, a building where the ambulance corps is, and then a third building, because we still don't have enough room. That's why I want to get the numbers to see what the square footage looks like.
So on that, I'm going to ask one more follow-up question, and then because of time, I'm going to move on. But can we do an inventory of the last time that equipment had been used to see if it's even feasible for us to continue to keep it? Do we need it? Should we auction it off? If some of the stuff that we haven't used in a really long time, or we're not using, we're storing for the what ifs or the nice to haves, maybe we can just get.
The DPW annually does prepare a list of things that we do auction off once a year when we hold the auction. And so I don't know what's on their list. I think we already did this year's. I don't know if they've started a list for next year yet. But typically, anything that they haven't used in, one full year, so it takes it off the seasonal rotation, if you will.
Okay.
That's usually what they come to me and suggest.
Okay. All right. So can we move on to the next
So
item?
that's the
or-
surplus auction that they have every year. Yeah, okay.
Mayor, are you comfortable moving on to the,
I am.
okay, to the next one, which kind of ties into that?
Absolutely. Did the research. We discussed it, I believe, in the last closed session. I just want to see from the council if there's any interest in pursuing that option or not.
They're agreeing to the same exact agreement previously.
Yes.
If I like not paying for the space. I think that's, we just spent an hour talking about saving money. I mean,
That's $2,500 a month.
Yep.
You know, for something else.
And
No, I'm not interested.
I'm not interested.
I'm not interested.
Are there any plans anytime soon for the swim club? Is that like, is
What-
this holding it up by leaving them there? Is it like we are not able to move forward?
The only thing that I would like to throw, well, to answer your question first, no, anything we do with the swim club is going to be, I want to say, at least a year out by the time we
Okay.
come to an agreement.
Okay, so
However, when we do agree on a DPW garage facility and a new building, they're going to need space because they're not going to have, while the construction's going on, they're not going to have the two places even that they have now, those two structures. So I'm not saying we have to reinstate this now, but we may have to reinstate it while that construction is going on because we may even fill the swim club parking lot and then some. So we might have to do this at a future date, assuming that OLGC would be amicable to doing it at that time when we're ready.
So we should save the money for now.
We should say, yeah, if we
It's
could.
30,000.
Yeah,
for
so
the year.
I agree with Councilwoman Blas. If we could, I don't agree with spending money if we have a place to put equipment. I understand not all the neighbors are happy, but at this point, if we're going to spend millions of dollars on a DPW building, we have to look at the overall cost. We just told the police the same thing. So it would not be, but I do agree that if we're going to do construction, we're going to obviously need somewhere to operate out of, and that has been working well. So
Yeah, I mean, while the equipment was at OLGC, as far as I know, they never got a complaint and we didn't at town. So it seems like a good location if we need extra space while the construction's going on of their new building.
yeah, and Paramus basically said no, and so did Wycliffe Lake said no, Westwood said no, Hostel said no.
No one
You got a
has,
big piece of property.
No, but that's where we need to start. In this point, at this time, I know that when I spoke with the county executive, he was willing to help us as a last resort.
right.
He did not say no. He said, if you guys run out, if you absolutely needed it as a last resort, obviously, looking at the swim club, he feels is a viable, it does not qualify as a last resort. We still have that option. But if it comes to the fact that you're saying temporarily, we need to house all of the equipment, it needs to be at swim club because we're actively building. Currently, there's shovels in the ground and we're
Right.
building.
correct.
So everything is at the swim club temporarily, but it doesn't fit. Rather than go and spend, I really would suggest we take Mr. Tedesco up on his offer and say, we don't have any space. Can we please use the annex for our overflow equipment, which I know he personally told me he would be willing to do.
Okay, and again, last resort means different things to different people. He might say, oh, you have an option, but it's going to cost you a little bit of money.
We won't know unless we ask him.
No, that's what I'm saying, right. That's why I
agree.
said last resort means different things to
Yeah.
different people. We'd have to qualify what he means by last
He was
resort.
super agreeable, when he even came by and saw the swim club and saw equipment we have there. So if we ran out of space,
We should definitely explore that before we pay rent.
right, agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're willing to keep that conversation open with us if we don't take this now, but if we need it in the future. Or you
I'm
have
going to
to-
say, I'm just going to tell them, it doesn't look like the council wants to move forward at this time. In the future, we'll have the discussion again with him. But I'd like to say, I don't want to keep, and I'll use the term loosely, wasting his time. So I might ask the council ahead of time, is it something you feel if we can get the same deal to go forward with? Because I don't like to give anyone false hope that we might be doing something if it's not going to happen.
Yeah, they need to budget as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, we'll keep that
So
as
we're
a
gonna-
line item for next year.
So we're going to move to the council ordinances and legislation, proposed amendment to ordinance 22-08, an ordinance requiring the registration of businesses which remove trees in the Township of Washington.
Yes, thank you, Council President.
Mhm.
The items in red are the, excuse me,
Go ahead.
the items in red are what I sat down with the town clerk and the code official, made corrections, and basically it's just tightening up the rules, that we might have overlooked. So it's relatively simple. It's just putting where the people should go for the permits and just changing some of the wording to make sure that everybody, conforms to the same rules.
Is the crane in here?
No, that the crane is going to be with the code official. He's going to put that on his report, and then he's going to stop by at the next council meeting to give us a quick presentation. But I know you have a time frame, so if you would mind, if we can have a vote on this, if everybody's agreed with, and I really would like to go to 2213. That is on Finity Place to change the no parking to no standing and no parking. So if everybody's agree with 22,
Well, I'd like to add to 2213 that it's the whole right side of the street as you make the right onto
right, can we
Finnerty.
just finish the tree thing first?
Right.
We just
do
went
one
to
at a
Finnerty.
time.
Yeah.
We went to Finnerty.
So go ahead. We'll agree with this, or we'll talk about this. 2208.
Right, if you're all agreeable to the changes that Tom has discussed in red and these, I do have it ready to go for an introduction tonight, if that's what you want, because of the time constraints of getting this in place.
Sure.
If not, we can, whatever you want to do as a council.
Motion to introduce.
I'll second. Sue, roll call.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilwoman Feeney?
Yes.
Councilman Sears?
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez?
Yes.
Council President Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna skip the 2023 meeting schedule for right now.
Wait, we didn't do 2213.
13.
What are you talking about?
That's number 4.
Oh, that's number 4.
So again,
Okay.
we're gonna skip 2023 meeting schedule for right now. Dr. Cassio, did you want to talk about the stop signs on Beach and Willow?
Yeah, Tom lives by those two streets, and I used to live between those two streets on Fern Street. So Tom's concern was a lot of people are running that stop sign going down Cross and Willow, because it's a hill and that's what they normally do. And Tom and I discussed, well, do we put a stop sign there? I'm not really a fan of the stop sign there on Beach Street going, and let me just clarify, there is one going west
Right.
and east. Beach goes north and south, so he thought maybe a four-way stop sign. And I know for most drivers, that causes massive confusion, okay? And we know that we have George School there. So my suggestion was, instead of putting stop signs there, maybe put some type of either a school crossing sign or some type of warning sign
Yes.
there. And maybe even we can get a little extra paint and at least put 2 crosswalks there. When you see a crosswalk, you have a tendency to naturally slow down your vehicle anyway. And I would put it, make it a box. Now, it might look like a little city-ish because now you got a box, you got a crosswalk going in 4 directions. But it would aid slowing people down, because people do tear down that road, that section of road very, very
Yeah,
fast.
real bad.
So Tom and I discussed it, and
Yeah.
and I'll leave the rest to Tom.
Yep, I took Dr. Cassio's recommendations, and I talked to Easy Ride, the state group that pushed us got us our Gold Safety Award, and they agreed with everything Dr. Cassio said. that would be a way to slow it down
Okay.
and make caution for it. So thank you, Dr. Cashin.
Oh, no, thank you.
Could we have the traffic officer go out and make a report and report to us back for the next council meeting?
That'd be great.
I was just going to ask the same
Okay.
thing. We have a paid traffic officer.
Could we have
Let
them?
him weigh in on it also.
Yeah, could we have before we move forward on that, could we get the traffic officer to put a report together for the next council meeting on that?
That'd be great.
I won't guarantee for the next council meeting
Okay.
because I don't know their scheduling, but I'll put it on their radar.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Finnerty Place.
So I'd like to make a recommendation along with Tom's recommendation on no parking, no standing, no stopping, nothing, to extend the no parking to the complete right side of the street, all the way down from Pascack to, what is that?
Woodfield.
Woodfield. So, because I think it's what the residents have asked for, and it will alleviate the site issue in general. There will be 0 cars there at all. And we're here to support the residents, and this is what they want. So, does anybody else have an opinion?
No, the mayor and I were at a meeting with them last week, and that's exactly one of their, she's still here. Hi, Julie. One of their comments to us.
And that's actually and we've talked about this, it's what I thought we were doing in the beginning. I thought it was that to begin with. I was surprised that it was only a certain amount of feet and that the sign was still up there. So I'm 100% on board.
I'd like to ask Mr. Lamontina or can we send this to Mr. Power then, Sue, to?
This is total change.
Okay, and then get this as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can introduce at the next meeting.
Okay, perfect.
And make
And
sure
the other
that
side, there's no
sign
problem with
changes.
parking, right?
Well,
No
and
standing,
there's a little
no
patch,
parking.
there's a little yellow piece on the other side of the street that I'd like to include in the no parking also. That's directly in front of your house, correct? So I'd like it not only to be from Pascack to Woodfield, but the yellow curb on the other side. And the traffic officer is going to have to send that wording because I don't know how to do that. So.
You already have it marked out there, right? They painted it already?
Yeah. Yeah, she has more of that.
Desiree, just 2 quick comments. I know you're trying to keep things moving. I want to point out that the police are the one who came to me when they were trying to enforce the ordinance and said, listen, a guy was sitting in his truck. We couldn't write him because that's standing. So they came with that suggestion. Second thing is we're doing this on Finnerty for the site thing, which is great. But just know that you're going to move the problem from Finnerty to one of the other side streets there. Because in my opinion, the people are going to continue to park because they want to eat lunch or get their meals at the shopping center. So it's a problem like we had with the schools many years ago. We said no parking on this street, so they moved over a block. So just
Right.
want everyone to keep that in mind. But the safety has to
The
come
safety,
first.
right.
So,
Honestly, that's what it was for me. It's
Right.
always the safety because I experienced it. It's not so much of, resident comfort.
Yeah.
Because that's just, we all live on a street and there's parking, that's it. But this was a hazard
Right.
for everyone.
Absolutely.
So 100%, I don't feel like we pushed the problem over. We definitely prevented.
right, not the safety problem, just, yeah.
And can I ask if we have a timeline on the orange block? The blockade?
On the what?
The orange blockade, the barrier?
It's up for Halloween, I thought.
We're waiting
I
for
would
the
say,
plaque.
if not by the end of this week, sometime next week.
We'll get you some jack-o'-lanterns. You can just put them on top, right? I mean, have dinner. Yeah, exactly, with the
Can I
judge.
just do 3 real quick?
Which one?
Number 3, Mike 3.
You did it.
No, I didn't. Meeting
Stop
schedule.
sign, speech.
No, meeting schedule. Let me-
And that's number 2. The meeting
number 2,
schedule?
yeah, number 2.
Yeah, that's gonna take forever.
No, it'll take 1 second. I just want to tell them, I'd rather have 1 meeting a
Oh.
month. That's all it is.
Man, I think you're gonna sit there and
No,
write
no.
it up.
Are you kidding?
Sorry,
I
go
don't have
ahead.
time for that.
That would have done that
Let
one
Susie do it.
first. Go ahead.
Let's do that.
Go ahead.
I propose, we work pretty hard here when we come in here 2 nights a month. I think we can get most of the stuff done in 1 night, since we do it in the summer anyway. We don't have less work in the summer to do. We don't have more in the fall just because it's a change of season. Instead of having the 2 meetings, 1 month. That's my proposal. So, think about it, digest it. It's up to you.
We do 1 meeting a month, we should take half the pay.
Well, you
Okay.
take half
I'm
pay.
dead
You know,
serious.
I'll give up all my pay.
as much as
Been
I'd like to
recommending
do
that for
that,
years.
I see problems from the administration.
I agree.
That we need council approval for certain things and one meeting. So again, we'll do our research on it also, but I don't know that will work.
I think our form of government, we'll have issues from approval, especially getting bills paid
Right.
and. our
That's the
credit
first one that comes to
report.
mind.
The staff that do the bill list, but the
Right, exactly.
They bill list they month
Just-
because they go from one to the next to the next. There's never like a break in between.
No, just a suggestion.
So it's
That's
definitely
about it.
something we can continue to talk
Yeah,
about,
that's
right? Okay.
Just throwing it out there.
No
Okay.
salary for next year sounds good.
What's that?
I said, council maybe save some money, give it back to the town, that we could take no salary next year.
Okay.
Actually say it at every budget meeting.
All right. We're going to go to closed session. So let me see here. Are we actually? We are not, are we?
Yeah, we are. We have closed session on the agenda.
I know, but
We have to do closed session. We have a couple of things on there.
I know. I'm just saying.
Motion to go into closed session.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. We're going to go to close. All right. Okay, so motion to enter into closed.
So moved.
Can I have a
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So we're going in for litigation, property acquisition, 450 Pascack Road, interlocal agreements, street sweeping with Paramus. And we will not reconvene to the public.